All right, thank you. Good. Are we good?
Good.
Okay. All right. Good evening, everybody. We are going to bring our meeting to order. I'm going to hold up the flag if everybody would like to stand or say the pledge. Alicia, could you lead us tonight?
I would be happy to.
Thank
Give
you.
everybody a second. Okay, I pledge allegiance
Allegiance to
the flag
Flag
of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thanks, Alicia. Appreciate it. All right, we have a very full agenda tonight. Prior to this meeting, we had our Truth and Taxation meeting. So thanks, Chris Gray. I think you're on the Zoom call. We do have a consent agenda before us, and I would entertain a motion for approval.
I have a couple of items.
Sure, go ahead, Mike.
Number one, under 3C, resignation of Anna Christine. She's a teacher at the high school, not the middle school. I know it's just a typo, but it isn't the middle school, it's a high school.
Okay, thank you for bringing that to our attention.
Okay, and the next item for the agenda, I would like to take public comment, which is number 4, and move it down to, I guess it would be number 9, immediately before board discussion items. Or, I'm sorry. It would be 9C, so that it's before the elementary reconfiguration discussion.
You wanted to move public comment.
Yes.
So if we move it from where it is now to just before the board discussion, is that what you're saying?
Yes.
Okay. So that will become 8 and we'll move everything up from there. So is that your only motion on the agenda, Mike?
Okay, what are you moving it to?
We're moving it just before the board discussion items.
Okay.
Is that okay?
Can it be could it be 9C so that it's immediately before the discussion? So the discussion ends up all being together.
So I think you would just place board public comment at 9C as recommending, and then 9D would be elementary reconfiguration discussion.
Okay. So that's your motion? Is there a second?
Second.
Tony, any comments or questions? Hearing none, those in favor for the agenda change, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? So going back to our consent agenda overall, I do need a motion to approve as amended with the agenda change.
So moved.
Mike and Jessica, any comments or questions? Hearing none. Joanne, would you do a roll call on that, please? Sorry.
Yep, not a problem. Mike,
Yes.
Brian,
Yes.
Alicia,
Yes,
Chuck,
Yes.
Carrie,
Yes.
Tony,
Yes.
and Jessica.
Yes.
7 yeses.
Thank you. Motion passes. Moving on, we are now at the superintendent report. Ben?
Thank you very much. I appreciate you all being here with us. And for those that are here for public comment, appreciate you being here as well. I do want to say before I start my report that I'd be remiss if I didn't acknowledge that one of our retirements on tonight's agenda that was just approved is Mr. Bruce Fuller from Deke Elementary School. And I think I would be remiss if I didn't just highlight the fact that he's been a very dedicated and valued administrator and principal in this school district for a very long time. And just has contributed so much to the children, not only at Deke, but across the district. His vision and passion for STEM education is really unrivaled. And I know that he's probably not going to be happy that I'm bringing it up because he wanted to kind of sail off into the sunset. But I do think that it is important to recognize that he's done such a great job. I know he will be missed not only by his staff, but his colleagues throughout the district. And I would also say that I know there are some things in the works that are being planned in his honor, but just a very good educator and very, very big part of our community. So we wish, Bruce, we wish you the best in retirement, and we're hopeful that you will be able to enjoy some time with your family. So thank you for that. I would like to also just kind of give you a little bit of an update. There have been a couple recent developments as early as yesterday. Before I get to that, I will say our bond projects are continuing to move forward. You know, the impending budget crisis that we've been talking about for, you know, a couple months now. One of the questions that I've been getting in just responding to different members in the community, you know, and it is an unfortunate situation, you know, with the budget crunch and crisis where it's at. Bond dollars, obviously, those dollars are spoken for at the Treasury Department. They're not able to be utilized on staff salaries or any type of item that they're not expressly committed for. So we are, you know, unable to use those dollars to backfill any gaps in the budgets as they come. Additionally, I would just like to say that our projects at the elementary schools are going very well. We believe that we're on track, and we just had our bid openings for our site work packages for the elementaries that came up. Early results look very good. We'll be bringing those at our next meeting for you to consider, and those are moving well. The middle school is also out for bid, which is great. And certainly the high school athletic complex here is going very well, in case you haven't had a chance to drive by and take a look at it. I also wanted to bring you up to speed on a development that happened yesterday, which is very exciting. But bring you some information. There was a news article that the House and the Senate Republicans put out that would increase, you know, possibly student funding with CARES Act dollars from the federal government up to $800 per student. We did get a bit of an analysis today from the legal team at MASA, so I'm going to share my screen so that you have an ability to see that. Hopefully you can see it on the screen. I will read it just for those that can't maybe quite see the print there. On Tuesday, June 23rd, the House and Senate GOP unveiled the details of their own Return to Learn plan, about a week ahead of the Governor's Return to Learn Advisory Council. The plan includes a list of policy recommendations and $1.3 billion of federal funding to Michigan schools to help safely reopen next year. First, the money, the one-pager distributed at the press conference details that the $1.3 billion would come in from in the form of $800 per pupil to K-12 schools to implement robust distance learning plans, health and safety measures to return students safely to the classroom, a one-time payment of $500 for frontline teachers, $80 million to ISDs to assist schools in coordinating and implementing distance learning plans and safe learning measures. Taking a closer look at the bills, the funding component leaves a few questions left unanswered. At first blush, the dollars appear to be additional dollars above and beyond what we already have budgeted. It's not clear what the outcome is, with only 1.3 being appropriated for the above mentioned items. If no other money comes in through, we will have several considerations. Number one, if the 1.3 billion is for this current year, which is what most of the analysts have said, that would close out the fiscal year that we're currently in without a proration, which obviously would be great news. if the dollars are distributed for the above purposes, they're going to be more restrictive. And so we're going to have to spend those dollars on those distance learning plans for things that are brought about by the onset of the pandemic. And so it's not clear that they would actually fill the funding gap, rather just provide a different, more restrictive dollars for fiscal that ends in less than a week, so this current year. That would leave districts in a difficult position of spending down fund balance or going into deficit. If the 1.3 billion is for next year, the same issues present themselves. The third consideration is that it's not clear the CARES Act allows these dollars to be spent that way. They go on to share that it's an important, that the proposal recognizes the reality of added costs for safe school to restart. These dollars do fall short of being able to hold budgets harmless while also providing added resources. From a policy perspective, it's a lot more complicated. There are about 6 different areas of policy change in the bills. We're reviewing the bills carefully according to the MASA team, but they recognize that these bills are more likely a starting point for discussion and are separate from the return to school roadmap that hopefully the governor will give us here by June 30th. As you know, this is expected to include input from a lot of different stakeholders, and more guidance on that plan will be coming out. Again, the initial one-pager of the plan indicates there would be an emphasis on flexibility for districts, giving them the power to start and stop instruction as needed, and would redefine certain words such as the definition of attendance to allow for schools to meet the same seat time requirements and engage in learning from a distance. The plan also relies heavily on schools and local health departments to answer the difficult questions regarding student and staff health and safety protocols. It would also require schools to utilize benchmark assessments to provide the information to both parents and teachers about where a student still needs help. And there are many more details in the bill that we'll have a more detailed analysis on. So in sum, it's great news. We're glad that the discussion is starting. We are looking at a $1.2 billion shortfall in this particular fiscal year. We're looking at about a $1.1 billion shortfall in next year. So hopefully this will be able to be a much needed solution and that there'll be more flexibility. The one thing that we're being told, and this letter also alludes to that, is that it's not going to be enough to hold the budgets harmless. And so I'm feeling very comfortable with our recommendations, and we'll talk more about that throughout our budget discussions tonight. So this is a good sign that the lawmakers are hopefully looking to be able to provide us with some additional relief so that schools can be held harmless. I will say one of the things that is very challenging for us that we're managing now with our staff who are coming in. We are utilizing many safety protocols, obviously, where we have some temperature screenings that are going on. And so we're learning a lot more what that's going to look like for students coming into the fall. And so we're eagerly anticipating Governor Whitmer's return to school roadmap. We're also going to be looking closely at the legislature's guide, and hopefully we'll be able to get some clear guidance on what the expectations are and what we will and will not be able to do come the fall. So appreciate all of your willingness to take a look at that. And if there's any other questions, just let me know.
I got one, Ben.
Sure.
The last paragraph, we're glad that the discussion has started, but anticipate much more detail from the roadmap that will be released on June 30th. That release, is that talking about the governors or is State Superintendent Mr. Rice?
Yeah, the governor is supposed to, as she previously stated, she made a announcement last week that the plan would be to return to school in the fall. And then followed with by June 30th, we'll be releasing kind of the roadmap. And so that is not necessarily going to speak too much to the budget. We already know the shortfall in the budget. But what her plan is really going to unveil more so than the money is going to be, here are the different stipulations that have to be in place relative to physical distancing, those types of measures that schools would need to engage in to start school safely. We've been planning for those, so we've been working with state groups, and so we'll be prepared for that, but it'll be very it'll be important for us to get that roadmap at the end of this month. So hopefully next week we'll be able to see the recommendations from the governor's office.
Thank you.
Mhm.
Any other questions for Ben? Okay. Next, we have our student board representative report, and I believe that you have some introductions, Jacob.
I do, and that's very exciting. I'll start off with just a brief summary of what we've done at the high school. The team that I talked about last meeting, when it comes to trying to figure out what our senior events are going to look like, has actually come to some solid conclusions. We are going to be able to hold a baccalaureate service for the senior class. That'll take place on Sunday, July 12th at 2 p.m. That is a blessing for the seniors. Then on Friday, July 17th, we're going to have a senior celebration at a beautiful farm venue, which is a real treat. I mean, we did not expect to be able to offer this much a couple of months ago. So we're very excited. And then, of course, on Sunday, July 19th, we will have our graduation, and there's been plenty of details released about that. So I'm just very excited about that. I'm so happy that our seniors are going to be able to have a little bit of closure. They're going to be able to see their friends again, see their classmates, and I'm really just beyond happy. Now, moving on to the topic of the evening, I went and picked up this the other day. You might remember this, because my service has come to a close. At the conclusion of this board meeting, I am no longer the student representative. We have two very fine gentlemen here with us that are going to take the reins and continue on forward. And those people are Brendan Johnson as the main representative and Isaac Ferris as the alternate. And so I can tell you that both of these people are incredibly smart, intelligent. They are very respectful, very involved people. And so I'm just going to turn the floor over to first Brendan to just talk a little bit about himself and give an introduction.
Hello, my name is Brendan Johnson. I will be a senior next year. And a little bit about me. I am, as Jacob said, very involved. I am in student council. I'm NHS president. I'm current class secretary. I'm in diversity club, marching band, madrigals, drama club, and even a steel drum band outside of school. Other than that, I am so thankful to have been given this position. I find that this position is very important to the overall community because it helps get the student voice heard and into the room where it happens, so to speak. So thank you very much, and I really appreciate this opportunity.
Congratulations.
Thank you.
Welcome, Brendan.
Thank you.
Okay, now, Isaac, if you want to say a few words.
Thank you for the introduction, Jacob. I appreciate it. Thank you for flattering me. As you may have heard, my name is Isaac Ferris. I'm the alternative student representative. As far as activities go, I'm in mock trial, quiz bowl, science Olympiad, jazz band, pit band, our ski club, and outside of school, I do Flint Youth Symphony Orchestra. I appreciate the opportunity you've given me, and I'm excited to give the student body a voice.
Welcome. Thanks. Welcome, Isaac.
So, to Mrs. Franklin and anything else that might come up, please forward everything from now on to these two gentlemen. I'm extremely confident in what they're going to be able to accomplish and, how they are going to be able to conduct themselves. Really just very happy to see this. And as the inaugural holder of this position, I tried to define it somewhat and give it shape. And I know that they're going to continue to do that in their own unique ways. So good luck to both of them. And thank you to all of you for welcoming me for the past several months.
Thank you, Jacob.
Thank you.
As we've all said before, good luck to you. We know you're going to make Swartz Creek proud.
Thank you very much.
Thank you, Jacob. I enjoyed your company and input into the board.
Jacob, it's a pleasure working with you all these months. Thank you.
Thank you. I feel the same way.
You did a great job. Thanks, Jacob.
Thanks so much.
I would like to say thank you as well. Good luck. And it's really hard to accept that Brendan and Isaac are both seniors. That means my baby is too. But these are two excellent gentlemen to join our team. So I was very excited.
Thank you, Jacob.
Thank you very much. Thank you.
Best wishes, Jacob.
Thank you.
Good luck to you.
Thank you.
Okay, well, thank you so much. And we look forward to working with you gentlemen very much. All right, moving on. We have no board subcommittee reports this evening. Moving on to board discussion items, we do have our 1920 and 2021 budget discussion.
Okay, thank you very much. I know that Mrs. Gray is on the line, and she is going to, Chris is going to take us through the budget presentation for tonight. I am going to share my screen, which includes the presentation, and I will allow her to present the different accounts, including the consideration for tonight, which is the closeout of the 1920 budget, as well as the anticipated 2021 budget. For the public, and also I know the board recognizes this, but just so people understand, school districts are required to produce a budget by June 30th. It's a fiduciary responsibility of the board to pass a budget resolution. Unfortunately, the state of Michigan does not necessarily always provide the exact budgetary number in terms of our student FTE. So what we are left with, along with all schools across the state, is to make decisions based on the revenue estimating conference and other decisions and other input from the different state stakeholders. So these assumptions are created from a myriad of factors, including the state associations, the Michigan Department of Education, the House and Senate fiscal agencies, and the governor's office. We are quite well informed of where things are at. And I think you will find that everyone across the state is looking at this and saying the budget is absolutely going to have some cuts. We know there's a $1 billion, as I said earlier, over $1 billion shortfall this year. And even though there may be some one-time money coming, there is an additional over $1 billion shortfall next year. We're hoping, of course, for some additional federal funds to help in the stopgap. But obviously, we're considering a variety of options to try and make sure that we do not cut into student programs, as we move forward. So I will go ahead and share my screen, and then I will turn it over to Chris Gray, and she can begin to speak to this.
Okay. Next screen. Okay, we're going to talk about 1920 first, and it's our final budget amendment, as always, at the end of the year. We're estimating, well, actually, we know our fund balance, our beginning fund balance from last year is $3,168,427. That's 8.37% of our general fund expenditures. Revenue, we're estimating to finish off the year at $38,487,558. Expenses at $681,745, leaving an estimated fund balance $3,974,000. I can't talk. I'm so sorry. $3,974,240. About 10.55%. So you can see that we're estimating for quite a significant increase this year in fund balance. Next slide. So this is the detail page. If you look at the blue area, it's comparing our last revision to our final budget revision, and it just goes into detail on the revenue, breaking it down by local, state, federal resources. So we're looking at a decrease in our revenue overall of $564,995. What's happening is our local is going down, our state is estimating to go down, but our federal is going up, and that's because of the CARES Act dollars. And then we had some other some other revenue that's also going up. So the total net effect is a decrease of $564,000 compared to our previous revision. On the expenditure side, our expenditures are going down a little over 1.1 million, due primarily to stay-at-home issues. So, our sub expenses, some staffing areas, transportation costs, no fuel, bus parts, and things like that. Our expenditures, we had one-time reductions in a lot of different areas. So that's primarily the overall decrease in expenditures. So that leaves us, we're looking at an increase from our last revision of $617,000. So comparing our last revision, our fund balance, we were estimating at about 8.64%, and we're looking at about 10.55%. So we can go into a little bit more detail on the next slide. Why are all these changes happening? So on the revenue side, as I said, local revenue decreased, primarily property tax values. They always dip. So when they first release property tax values, it seems like in the last few years, they've always been higher. And then they do a revision in May, and then I pick them up, and there's always a decrease in values. Athletic gate receipts, we didn't collect any spring receipts. Community ed tuition, there were no spring community ed classes held, so the tuition is down. Childcare, all the things as a result of closing schools back in March, childcare, performing arts. And then we had some grant revenue that was in the local area. That item was moved to the other revenue area that I will talk about in a couple of minutes. And then we moved our GISD transportation to other revenue. That was $130,000. Just reclassifying those two items because they aren't really local revenue like property taxes. They're more of a transfer between schools. And we classify them down in the other area so that when the state kind of pulls all the data together, it doesn't get double counted. If we count it as revenue, and then it's double counting it because the ISD is also counted it as local revenue. So this counting, or the accounting of putting it into the other, takes care of that, and it's the proper way to do that. And then state revenue went down $716,000, primarily because we put in a $300 per pupil reduction in the current year's revenue. We felt that it would, at the time of making the decisions, that was likely. It may or may not happen, but we felt it was a conservative thing to do because if we don't put it in and it does happen, then the state will look at us, and say, hey, your revenue is a lot lower than you had budgeted, and sometimes it becomes an issue. So we felt that it was conservative to estimate the revenue going down. And then we had some other state grant changes, and the other change in the state aid, $382,000. We had some just changes to our revenue on the state side. Federal revenue up $550,000, due primarily, like I said, there was a couple other grant changes, but primarily to the CARES Act funding, which is great. We have already applied for the funding, and we were able to offset salaries and benefits. So all that revenue coming in was a complete add to our bottom line, as opposed to having to create other expenditures. We were able to offset existing expenditures. And then, as I already talked about, the other revenues, we were just doing some reclassification from local to other revenue. On the expenditure side, in the next column, the change, once again, was due mostly to school closure. Over $1 million, a decrease in expense was due to school closure. We had some other changes, nothing nearly as significant as that single change, but we had instructional salary benefits that we were able to decrease on the instructional side $378,000 is related to the federal grant, the CARES Act. And we had some changes in the building level administrative office position. That was about a $30,000 add. And that happened before the CARES Act, or before the school closure. We added a custodial supervisor for the month of June that wasn't previously in the budget. That added to the budget, just under $7,000. We had the County Drain Commission capital fee, about $16,000. And some changes in transportation with the ISD, decreased our expenditures. We had some fringe benefit adjustments, about $405,000. And that was a nice change to our procedures. We were able to reduce our expenditures. It was just a one-time adjustment, but that helped add to our fund balance for 1920. And some other miscellaneous grant changes and expenditure changes made up the difference, but the vast majority was due to the school closure. Any questions about this? There's a lot of detail here. I don't know if anyone wants to ask a question before I move on. Okay. Okay. So food service, beginning fund balance, $420,000. Revenue ending, we're estimating about just under 2.4 million. Expenses about 2 million, with the ending fund balance going up at about $752,000. Once again, you know, we have a lot of changes due to school closing, and we were actually now school districts were able to show looking at an increase in 1920. A lot of food service budgets were seeing just the opposite happening, but because we were running the emergency food plan due to the unanticipated school closure, we ran a really efficient program and had a lot of we were able to submit for a lot of claims, and really the only change was additional food costs because we were paying the salaries and benefits through the end of the school year anyway. So it is attributed to our increase in our fund balance for the school year. Next slide. So our student activity fund, also another special revenue fund. This is a better idea. You know, the last time we revised this budget, it was purely just a stab in the dark because this is the first year we've done a budget like this, budget resolution. So we started off the year with $308,000 in the fund balance. Those are all the activity funds from previous years. That was the total balance remaining. This year we have revenue of $246,000 coming in, new money. Expenses, not that all these expenses will be going out, and but if they were to go out, we have a budget of $554,000 to cover all expenses if they were to occur, and that would leave us an ending fund balance of $0. I'm not anticipating that will happen, but it could happen, so I have to budget and show a budget showing the full expenditures. Any of those funds that remain at the end of the year will show up for 2021 as the beginning fund balance and will be dispersed back to the club organization that or building that they were remaining from 1920. So, okay, next slide. Okay, is this a good point? If anyone has any questions about 1920, you know, go ahead and let me know, and then, or we can move on to 2021 if nobody has any questions about 1920.
I would just like to highlight, is you did a nice job there, Chris, of showing, but the expenditures that we were able to save, obviously that she highlighted, transportation costs and things like that, were one-time savings that we realized this year as a result of school shutting down. As we go into the fiscal year 2021, we cannot necessarily assume that those one-time expenditures will be able to be saved again. And so those have to be added back into the budget. And so I think that's one just kind of anecdotal comment that I think will be helpful as you start to look at the numbers for this next budget year.
Okay, moving on to 2021. Okay, so some of our things that we're going to talk about: current legislation, enrollment data, program and investment changes, staffing and benefits, and then we'll look at some of the detail. Okay, usually when we talk about current legislation, we know what kind of increase or decrease we're looking at, but I just kind of put in here that we really don't have. We have a lack of current legislation. So this slide will just kind of tell you what we have in the budget right now. It doesn't mean that we know that this is what's going to happen. It's just what our best educated guess, because there's nothing out there that says what next year is going to look like at this point. But as we move on into the next couple of months, we'll get a better idea and we can do more planning, fine tuning. So we're estimating continuation of the $300 per pupil decrease that we took in 1920. So that'll get us to the $78.11 per pupil. The actual change obviously is not known at this time, but we're just going to continue on with that. At risk, usually we talk about, oh, is it going up or is it down? And that it's a significant grant for us, but at this time, we're just showing that it's staying the same. And we'll have to make adjustments next year as we find out more about our at-risk dollars. I think we do know GISD gave us an increase in allocation about $135,000 more than last year, and that's a significant increase for us. And we're able to offset some of our stateside costs, and that helps, in the bottom line. So we're able to add the TC to the IDEA fund or IDEA grant and do some other things. So that's great. And then on our other federal grants, Title I, II, IV, those are looking like their initial allocations are going to be lower than 1920. So we'll have to plan accordingly. And usually, carryover dollars helps kind of fill those gaps, and we just have to, every year we have to kind of make adjustments as our allocations go up and down. So we'll continue doing that. One thing about Title I, the consolidated application encompasses Title I, II, and IV. That grant, the deadline is usually July 1st in order to be able to have any expenditures count and used towards that grant year. But this year they've extended the deadline to July 31st in order to have a commitment date of July 1st. So that gives us a little bit leeway, and that's been a godsend because we really need a little bit more time to plan, because you get really like one shot to get it right with the consolidated application. So we need to make sure we're spot on. So it just gives us more time for accuracy. So that's been great from the state and on that end. Okay, I'm gonna move on to enrollment data. Okay, we're estimating a blended count of 3,582 students. We're estimating a reduction of 50 FTEs from the fall of last year to the fall 2020. And once again, there's a calculation to get to the blended count. You take 90% of the fall 2020 estimated count and 10% of the spring 2020 count. So that calculation gives us the 3,582 students. So it hasn't changed. Some program investment changes. We're gonna focus our Title I dollars on salary and benefits, and this has been something that we've been working hard at doing. And as we go through our audits, it really proves to be the best course of action. So this next year, in the 1920, they've gone through a process to apply for school-wide, school-wide, I'm not sure what it's called, but school-wide as opposed to target assistance. And they've gone through that process, and I think Rod could speak better to this, but I think that they have been granted or are expecting that they will be approved for school-wide. And what that allows us to do is for all of our buildings, we're able to do all the same kind of programming instead of offering, an aid just for one-on-one assistance with Title I students. They're able to offer all those services to the entire school instead of on a targeted assistance basis, one-on-one. So it gives us a little bit more flexibility in how we place staff. They can help a wider array of students. So I think it's beneficial to the buildings to be school-wide. And as I already said, the consolidated application deadline's been extended to July 31st. It's a great thing. Another change, the custodial equipment and maintenance truck purchases that we had in 1920, where we're moving those, we're not going to add those again this year. I did in 2021, we weren't sure about the timing because of the delay with a lot of manufacturing and delivery of, like, we had a truck that we had purchased for maintenance. We weren't sure about the delivery. So I put the, put it in the budget for 2021, but it's looking like we'll be able to wrap that purchase up in 1920. So we'll be able to remove that from the budget at the next amendment. But I didn't want to delay the payment if for some reason it wasn't in the budget and we got it in July 1, we wouldn't have been able to secure payment. So we'll be able to remove that from 2021. And then we will be adding, we have added for 2021 2 bus purchases. It was something that we did back in November and we were committed. So we are going to continue on with payment. Those will be delivered in August. And then, as Ben had already mentioned, all the one-time reductions from 1920 that were due to the COVID school closure will be, we'll have to, like school subs and building level supplies, all those budgets have to be brought back so that they can operate at the normal level. So all those budgets had to be replenished, basically. Next slide. Staffing and benefits. Benefits, salaries and benefits district-wide represent approximately 80% of the general fund budget. So obviously it's an area that we do a lot of planning with. It's very important. So our teacher FTEs were estimated at 190.5. And the same bullets are under also the admin and central office staff. We were decreasing the admin and central office staff, overall decrease of 2.0. And because of a lot of the unknowns, we're continuing with efficient staffing. And it's, resulted in reduction of staff. And we'll continue making corrections to staffing levels when the funding is announced by the state and the state guidelines for the fall are known. So we just have to remain flexible and just, take the data that we get and information and plan accordingly. We're looking at the retirement rate increase. The state is issued their rates, and the basic rate, there's a lot of different rates, but just for instance, the basic rate's going to 42.72% from 39.91. That's reflected in the budget, and hard cap adjustments are reflected in the budget. And then the hard cap adjustments only talk about, are only in regards to the health insurance component of benefits. The rest of the benefits like vision, dental, life, and LTD, we're estimating a 4% increase on all of those, a little bit higher than last year. So when we look at the overall view for 2021, we're estimating the fund balance at the beginning fund balance at $3,974,240. That's 10.55%. Revenue, just a little over 38 million. Expenses, just a little over 38 million. So that'll leave our estimated ending fund balance around 2.6 million. So that's going down to about 6.78%. Okay, next slide. So this is in detail. It's similar to what we saw with 1920. If you look at the area in blue, it's comparing our 1920 final budget on the left, on the left with the 2021 original budget on the right. So if you look at total revenue in comparison, we're looking at a decrease in 460,000 in revenue in total. Expenditures in total are expected to go up 1.65 million. So that's adjusting our fund equity down about 1.3 million from our final budget. So all those in total, we're looking at a fund balance at around 6.78% at this point. Okay, so some graphs on the next screen. If we look at our general fund budget, our revenue, here's the components. Obviously, the state aid is the largest component. We have a few state grants in there, but at 77%. And then local revenue comprises about 17% of our budget, and federal revenue 5%, and then other around 1%. Looking at the expenditures, Instruction and pupil support, that's the vast majority of our budget. So that'd be all the people in the classroom, all of our support staff and teaching staff that provide instruction and direct services for special ed. And then the next component, mental support services. And then operations is about 8% of our budget, transportation 4%, community services 2%, athletics 2%. So you can see, as it should be, instruction and pupil support is the vast 71% of our budget. So general support would be executive admin, board, and fiscal services. So like business department. Sorry, I meant to say that and I forgot to. So this is, the next slide is, oh, I'm missing the title on this slide. This is our fund equity, a graph. Somehow it didn't get on there. Fund equity over the years. And you can see it's kind of it looks like kind of like a wave, and it's going back down. We're estimating it going back down in 2021 at 6.78%. And then the previous year up down from 10.55%. So we always want to look at it going back up, but you know, it's just the beginning. We'll see what happens. We don't know what the year really looks like at this point. So the next slide, I always like to look at our expenditures by object code. So salaries and benefits is close to 80%. And then purchase services, a lot of our staff is purchase services. We have like edge staff people, our custodians. That's 14% of our budget. Supplies, about 5%. And capital outlay, about 1%. And other, about 1%. So salaries and benefits are the big items in our budget. Okay, next slide. I'll take a look at food service. So we're estimating that we're gonna have a beginning fund balance of $752,000. Revenue, just under 2 million. Expenses, about 1.8 million. And at this point, you know, we're estimating ending fund balance is gonna go up a little bit, about $902,000, depending on, you know, what the requirements are of school, how the delivery method is, restrictions, expenses, you know, those are all things that are gonna play into how we shape our food service budget at amendment time. So we'll get a better idea going forward, you know, what kind of additional expenses we'll have. Will we have to have additional equipment for serving, warmers? You know, those are all questions that we'll have to look at and address. But I feel confident with the way we're ending 1920 that we'll have the funds for any additional increases that we'll have to cover food costs and equipment costs and salaries and, you know, for next year. So I'm confident that food service will have a healthy bottom line again this next year. Okay, student activity fund. We're estimating a beginning fund balance, $300,000. Revenue, if you know we have a similar year as to this year, we'll bring in a revenue around 300,000. Expenses, if we budget for all of the funds to be expended, that would be around 600,000, and that would be ending with a zero fund balance, which, as I said, is not likely, but we need to plan conservatively. So, okay. Any questions about 2021 or even 1920? If anyone has anything that they want to ask.
Can you hear me?
Yep.
Okay, sorry. So I wanted to ask in the so the projections for 2021, that potential to be at 6.8% of our fund balance, that is only appreciating the original $300 cut. That's not any additional cut.
Right.
That may potentially come. Okay.
Right.
So I just wanted to clarify that for myself, but for everybody else as well.
That's correct.
I do want to just publicly thank you for all your hard work. I don't think anybody can appreciate the amount of detail work you put into this. It's and you do this all year long and give us updates all the time. So thank you for all of that.
Thank you.
You're welcome. But it's a lot of work and we appreciate it. And the position that we're in, ending out 1921, is almost solely because of all of your hard work as well. So the deep dive that you've done in cleaning up our expenses and our procedures, and then looking at ways to be able to save, that needs to be accredited to you. So thank you. But I did want to also comment when you mentioned, our best estimates and our best guesses. All of these, for everybody's benefit, to understand that we get that information from people that are sitting on the House floor or, with people that are making the decision at the state level, and getting expert advice into where we sit and what we need to be doing. And that this whole process, although it's not great that we can't make decisions with real numbers, this isn't new and this isn't special to just this year. This is how boards and districts have to budget. This is what we've always done. We're lucky in some instances where we end out the year or midway through the year find out that we're actually getting more money than we expected. Unfortunately, we're in a position where we're very likely going to get a lot less than what we had wanted or expected. And as well, we're trying to make up for not getting what we thought we were going to get even for last year. So just a comment that we're really in an unprecedented time. I mean, I know that's kind of a cliche term to say right now, but it really is the truth.
Yeah.
Thanks for those comments, Alicia. I would echo that. And I would also say we are very fortunate to have folks like Ben who stay very connected to Lansing so that he knows immediately when there are changes. And he's given us a lot of heads up over the last few months about what might happen. And none of this is in control, our control, but I do appreciate the folks that are advocating on behalf of our students and trying to be so proactive. Mike, you had a question?
Yes. Chris, can the board get a hard copy of this budget, please? We normally always do.
Oh, I can email it to,
Yeah, absolutely. Like you can get a hard copy of it. You have obviously all the documents, but you are welcome to stop by and we can certainly get one printed for you.
Thank you.
Mike, were you referring to the
Pardon?
I think she was going to ask, are you referring to the presentation itself or the budget document?
presentation that she just made?
The budget.
Okay.
I believe we get a copy of the budget, not the presentation.
Correct.
Although
You can
when
have
I get
both.
home, I'll look and verify that.
Okay.
Anybody else have questions for Chris? Okay.
Thank you, Chris.
you're welcome.
So Ben, next on our list is the state guidance on starting school in the fall.
Thank you. This will be somewhat short. I just wanted to I already somewhat preempted this. We have been spending quite a bit of time in the county. We have a very collaborative group of people working with the health department, working with other school districts, and we're all brainstorming all of the variables that are in place for starting school in the fall. I'm feeling more and more confident each day that we're getting some good procedures in place to keep children safe. Those range from expanded cleanliness procedures and how we're going to keep things sanitized to the physical spaces and how we're going to organize people. They also include, as I recommended and talked about earlier, staff safety checks, temperature screenings. And so all of these things come together and kind of converge on, just a hope and an excitement for the fact that we can do this well. We can get back to school and do it in a safe way. I'm also want to just remind everyone that we have a tremendous staff that has been planning on how do we offer learning to our children in really 3 completely different modalities and allow parents and children choice in how they will consume their education. And so we do intend to offer online for parents that want to keep their children at home. We, that will be a robust system. It will be different than what we did in the spring. We also will have a kind of an innovative blended model where children can come to school part of the week, take the other part of their instruction online. And then, of course, finally, we're planning for a large number of our students to come back to school, as the governor has stated, and we anticipate that being the largest preponderance of our children. One of the things that just for the board and for community and for parents, we will be at the building level, we will be requesting parents to elect their choices as well later on this summer. So as we get closer, probably towards the end of July, there'll be an additional contact point from the buildings to basically get a final selection, so that parents will know, okay, I'd like my child to go into this modality or this modality. And at that point, we'll have even more information to share about what that looks like. So looking forward to getting back at it. And I think at our July board meeting, I'll have much more to share as the governor unveils her plan for these types of things on June 30th.
Thanks, Ben. Any questions for Ben from the board? Okay. All right. With our adjusted agenda, we now have the opportunity for public comment. We have a large number of folks on the line who would like to comment, and we want to give everybody a chance to do so. So for those of you who've not provided public comment previously, this is your opportunity to speak for 3 minutes, up to 3 minutes to the board. I would ask that everybody be respectful and speak one at a time. I will have Travis call on folks to speak. You'll have 3 minutes. At 2.5 minutes, I'll let you know that you're drawing to an end, and then you can wrap up your comments. At the end of 3 minutes, we will have to move on, and Travis is going to help us manage that process. So I appreciate everybody's patience and cooperation with the process. So with that, I'm going to ask Travis to open up and start calling on folks. Oh, I also should mention, he will mention your name so that you won't lose a few seconds of your 3 minutes.
Sure. Thanks, Gary.
Sure.
First up for public comment, Jeannie Weird. I'm going to go ahead and unmute you. And feel free to start whenever.
Hi. I just wanted to say that I have been a part of Swartz Creek Schools for quite a while now. I'm a staff member, a parent, and I graduated from Swartz Creek in 1994. I've been a part of Cyrene Elementary for 10 years now, and both of our kids went to Cyrene from kindergarten until 5th grade. And I know that change is always scary, especially when we don't really know what everything is going to look like. But changes can also be very positive. And I think sometimes we have to be taken out of what we've always known to realize that something's more beneficial. And when we're looking at the new elementary model, where we would have the kindergarten through 2nd grade and then the 3rd through 5th grade levels, honestly, I wish my kids would have had this opportunity. I think it would have been very beneficial for both of their transitions into the middle school, because they would have already known so many of their peers, and they would have been more on the same page when it comes to the teaching styles. Now, both of my kids have had a wonderful experience at both the middle school level and now for my oldest at the high school level. But I think who have had that team teaching at a lower level would have benefited them even more, in my opinion. I know that our district, as long with so many others in Michigan right now, have to look at these financial situations and our budget cuts, and unfortunately they have to happen. And I can't imagine my two students who are one's in middle school and one's in high school and will be next year. I can't imagine them losing opportunities or our district losing opportunities just because we might be, including myself, we might be scared of the change of what could happen at the elementary level. And in my opinion, I love the team teaching that they do at the middle schools. My kids have worked really well with it, and to have that at a lower elementary level, in my opinion, is just going to be more of a positive experience for them. So,
Janie, you have 16 seconds. I'm sorry.
Okay. Nope. That's what I was just going to say. I was just going to say thank you for allowing me to share.
And we thank you for your comments very much.
Okay, thanks, Jeannie. Next up, we have Lindsay Nemmer from 3404 Heritage Boulevard. I'm going to unmute you and feel free whenever to begin.
There are plenty of cost-saving options that we've never even discussed or considered, and we're being forced into a decision so that Ben's agenda of reconfiguring our elementaries can be realized, as he's been trying to do it for over a year. Parents, teachers, and community spoke up last year, and we're speaking up again. Leave our schools alone. We're making a permanent change based on temporary circumstances, not because it's proven for academics and our children, but because it's what our superintendent wants, and I find that to be incredibly irresponsible. Ben stated we've been in a strong financial position over the last few years, and that has led us to be able to be better prepared than many districts around the state, but then stated reconfiguring the schools is the only way to save the district money without cutting programs. Cutting programs would be a temporary cut that would allow for re-implementation when funds are appropriated from the government. Davidson schools cut 5 teachers and mostly cut things that don't involve people or programs. There are plenty of ways to cut the budget that do not involve reconfiguring the schools. We could cut some finances in our top-heavy administration. Top administrators were just given $15,000 to $20,000 raises. We could do tiered pay cuts for top administrators. We could eliminate unnecessary positions and ask other administrators to wear multiple hats, as other districts do. We could temporarily furlough some 52-week employees. We could decrease retirement matching for the year. Sell the cage. We could follow Davidson's lead and cut things that don't involve people or programs, just to name a few. Ben also said we're only one of 3 districts out of 21 in Genesee County that employ completely K-5 elementary configuration. Out of the 55 ranked elementaries in Genesee County, 11 of them run non-traditional elementaries. Grand Blanc runs 2 because of the size, so it's not the entire district. Flushing runs a 1 through 6, no real comparison. Davidson runs K through 4 and 1 through 4, so again, no real comparison. Ben's also said there's no definitive research on the educational advantages or disadvantages, and he's right. Of the top schools in Michigan, only 51 are configured in this manner. Of those 51, 20 have declined last year by an average of 64.9 spots. The average ranking for local schools configured like this was 658 out of 1,407. Ben stated it's estimated this model will save the district between $500,000 and $600,000 without increasing elementary class size. Ben states, if Deke has 64 first graders and Cyring has 44, that gives us a 32-to-1 and 22-to-1 student-to-teacher ratio. This model would even those out to 27-to-1, but let's use actual numbers. Our district averages a 26-to-1 ratio in the elementaries. Changing to this model keeps those numbers at 26-to-1 until we let go of 6 teachers.
Lindsay, excuse me, you have 30 seconds. Thank you.
You're good. Then our class average becomes 29-to-1 across the 4 schools. A $100,000 teacher is a master's with 30 plus and has completed their steps. We don't have 21 of those. Thank you for allowing us these 3 minutes to express our opinions. It's literally the least you can do.
Thank you, Lindsay.
Thank you. Next up is Kristen. Thank you, Lindsay. Next up is Kristen Swift from 1520 Coach Light Court. And
I have a daughter who attends.
Go ahead, Kristen. Sorry, just unmuted you.
My name is Kristen Swift, and I have a daughter who attends Elms Road Elementary. I want to start off by saying that I am extremely opposed to this proposed elementary reconfiguration model. Our children have been through so much already this year with the pandemic. They have been isolated from friends and family and did not even get a chance to properly say goodbye to their teachers and classmates. This fall is already uncertain enough with changes due to COVID-19, and we don't even know what school will look like next year. The last thing our children need is more stress and changes to deal with in the fall. They need as much normalcy and familiarity as possible to deal with the academic and emotional challenges they will be facing already. Some of the added stress that this new model could cause are as follows. Parental involvement will be much more difficult. Parents have enough to juggle with careers, responsibilities at home, and multiple children's schedules. If they have to divide time between two elementaries, they may have to choose one child over another and not get to be as involved as they once were. Parental involvement is crucial to a student's success. Transportation is also a stressful issue. Will there be busing for all students in the household or just to certain schools? What about parents who have to try to drive their students to more than one school? Another negative effect would be children not getting to return to the staff and the teachers that they have come to know and trust and their friends. Those relationships are crucial to their success. And there will be less chance of getting to possibly be in the same class as their friends with all these children coming into one building. One last stress will be kids having to make an extra school transition during their academic career. It's hard enough going from elementary to middle school, but for them to have to change elementaries will be much harder for these younger children. I hope you can see from all of this that people matter more than just money. We have to put kids and families first. Money is a temporary issue and will always have ups and downs, but if we do this to our kids, it can have a negative impact on how they feel about school the rest of their lives. There is no evidence that this model improves student success at all. It usually does just the opposite. All the talk about money and budgets is premature anyway. Nobody knows how the federal government will step in and help next year. There's no need to make big changes with layoffs and changing our schools like this and causing so much turmoil for our kids. Finally, Superintendent, why are you so committed to this elementary reconfiguration model? You wanted to do this last year, and now you are sneaking it again while the buildings are empty. What do you stand to gain from making these changes? How will this further your career? Thank you.
Thank you, Kristen. Next up is going to be Crystal Mata. Crystal, you're unmuted. Feel free to start whenever.
I just have a couple of questions with the elementary model. If we do go through with this, how would the busing situation be handled, especially when you have two children that will now be attending two different elementaries? Also, it's always been a discussion as far as the possibility of a closing game. If that is a possibility, what would you think you would save by closing that building? And how much would you lose by the amount of students who would leave the district? I guess
Crystal,
that's all I have.
Crystal, I'll give you your time back, but I'm just going to ask Joanne to keep track of your questions, if you don't mind.
Oh, so you would like me to repeat that?
Oh, I think Carrie froze.
You can continue.
Okay. Do you just need me to restate my questions?
No. Can you hear me now?
Oh, I was done.
No, that's okay. Go ahead.
Crystal, you all set?
I do believe so.
Okay.
Thank you very much.
Next up is Elizabeth Nemmer from 3405 Heritage Boulevard.
Can you hear me okay?
Elizabeth, you're ready. Yep.
Thank you. On April 14th, Ben communicated we're here to have your back and make sure that we will give you everything you need to keep your child engaged in learning so that they can come back in the fall and resume normalcy as much as possible. However, passing this elementary model split does not promote returning to normalcy as much as possible. In fact, I see this to be quite the opposite of returning to normalcy in the fall. Our elementary children were ripped from their schools on March 12th only to experience a pandemic, homeschooling, and many things that will contribute to their emotional state come fall. Some children will have spent 5 years in their home building only to be uprooted from everything that they knew for one final year. Some children only spent 1 to 2 years in a building only to be uprooted from that building for 1 to 2 years, then sent back again. How is this bringing them to their state of normalcy? Reconfiguring the elementary schools in this manner would create an additional 1 to 2 transitions, and studies have shown there is a 3.8% decay rate each time a student transitions buildings. Studies of the Academy of Notre Dame have shown that as grade span configuration increases, so does achievement. The more grade levels the school services, the better the students perform. The more transitions the students make, the worse a student performs. Over the course of their schooling, this would require students to transition a minimum of 4 times. The last few months of school saw buses double daily and kids spending an hour or more on the bus after a 7-hour day in school. Significant research has shown that individuals with large average times on a bus report lower grades, poor levels of fitness, fewer social activities, and poor study habits. On June 10th, Ben communicated that this is a financial decision if the elementary model split is implemented. Organizational structures commonly see individuals wearing multiple hats, which allows for consolidation and cost savings, resulting in a more linear upper hierarchy. I would challenge Ben and the board members to examine each administrative role, as well as their bandwidth, to determine where these positions could be merged within a single individual. I would encourage the board to look at as many options as possible that do not have the potential to harm the education of our youngest community members. Character is who you are when no one is watching. I would urge each of you to consider the conversations you previously had and ask, are you truly doing what is right by our elementary students?
Elizabeth,
Have
you
you
have 30
really
seconds.
considered many options and given each of them unbiased consideration? Going against the grain may not be the most popular. However, standing up for what is truly right is the solace we ask from you today.
Thank you, Elizabeth.
Thank you.
Thank you, Elizabeth. Amanda Shepard, you're up next from 6150 Weyerbacher. You're unmuted. Feel free to start whenever.
Hi, thank you for the opportunity to speak. I really don't have anything more to add than what has already been said with regard to the elementary school restructure. I am very much opposed to that for all of the reasons that were already mentioned. From my standpoint, I am a registered nurse, and I think you really, really need to take a look at the mental health impact that this would take on your, children. They've already been uprooted from everything that they know as normal with regards to schooling. And then we don't know really what school is going to look like for anybody in the fall yet. And then to do this on top of it, it's just not the right time. So really, that's all I have to say. Thank you.
Thank you, Amanda.
Thank you. Next up will be Kelly Swales from 2000 RHEA Drive. Kelly, you're unmuted.
Hi. A few days ago, I posted on social media some positive thoughts about the new elementary structure should it be approved. I was surprised when several elementary teachers contacted me and thanked me for posting my thoughts. There are elementary teachers in this district who support this move but are afraid to speak up for fear of backlash from peers and parents. I am here to speak on behalf of these teachers. I grew up in Swartz Creek. My children attend Swartz Creek, and I have taught in this district for 18 years. I have represented our district multiple times at the state and national level, speaking at conferences about the innovative things happening in our district. I've been able to collaborate with educators from across the country, and it's given me a strong professional learning network, and I would not support something that I think would harm our students. I understand the struggles that change brings with it. I empathize with what my fellow teachers are feeling right now as I move buildings after 17 years. There will be an adjustment period. Those posting on social media have made us well aware of the cons. I would like to share some of the conversations that have been had with my colleagues about the positive aspects that some of our teachers are looking forward to should this change occur. As teachers, we are inundated with research on the positive effects of differentiated instruction. More grade level teachers means more flexible grouping for students' needs, whether they are our high flyers or our struggling students. It is a struggle to teach the needs of today's diverse learners on your own. How nice would it be to have 4 or 5 grade level teachers in one building that can collaborate and do flexible groupings to meet the needs of all learners? I was blessed to have been able to teach using a true team teaching approach for a couple of years and found it very rewarding and effective. Our success is reflected in our scores for those years. However, there are many teachers in our district who do not have this opportunity due to enrollment. I know this is about elementary, not middle school, but elementary sets the groundwork for the later years of schooling. Our standards scaffold off of elementary students, so we are expected to pick up where elementary left off and continue the flow of learning. This proves to be very difficult when students have been taught the 5 standards 5 different ways with different background knowledge to draw from. They come to us with a mashup of what they have been taught and how they have been taught it. When you have limited time to get through all those standards, it goes much smoother for the students when they have had similar experiences. It would be wonderful to see all the students having the same resources available to them. Why not pool these resources to all of our learners to give them more experiences that they may not get at one particular building?
Kelly, you have 24 seconds.
Change is difficult, but that doesn't mean we shouldn't embrace it because we are scared. We must come out of our comfort zone if we wish to grow as a community and a district. Growth and having an open mindset is something our district takes pride in teaching our students. It would be disheartening to see an opportunity for growth missed because we are worried about change. Thank you.
Thank you, Kelly.
Thanks, Kelly. Next up is going to be Michael Osenek, 3125 Derby Lane. Michael, you're unmuted.
Hi, I'm Michael Osenek. I have 2 children at Elms Road Elementary, 1 incoming 3rd grader and 1 incoming kindergartner. I am very proud to be a Swartz Creek parent. We chose to live here based on neighborhoods and potential, and we've been very happy so far, especially with all the work and plans in place for the bond. The plan for realignment has some good ideas, and I assume positive intent. I'm just worried that with the pandemic and budget changes, this will be too much all at once. Not only would the children be affected, missing friends in other grades, not seeing teachers they've seen in the past, and especially busing that will have to take place in an already crunched bus system with many issues. We've been really looking forward to our son in 3rd grade helping our daughter entering kindergarten this year, and it wouldn't happen under this model. I would like to give this plan more time. Particularly, I'd want to see a pro forma showing all the cost savings and potential future trends. I'd like to see some focus groups and more parent interaction. I feel like 2 months time between now and school starting is not enough time to prep all the teachers and transportation that would be affected by this, while also including all of the COVID-19 changes. Working in planning at a local hospital, I can definitely understand the need to cut costs right now. I would point to other possible areas for cost-cutting measures rather than this particular one at this particular time. I know Gaines Elementary has been discussed in the past, as well as plenty of other options like pay-to-play and sports programs. I feel the impact on students would be much less with some of these other options. If possible, we could follow the lead of other industries. I know there are contract and union issues, but perhaps employees could pay more for benefits for a year or take a pay cut for a few pay periods, as the hospital that I have worked at has done, or maybe on time or early retirement. Thank you for taking our feedback. I feel that I've spoken to many people, not only from Elms Road, but from other schools who are against this plan right now, and the board has to hear that. That's all I have to say. Thank you.
Thank you, Michael.
Thanks, Michael. Next up is going to be Kimberly Hurd from 5308 Durwood.
Can you guys hear me okay?
Yep.
Hello.
Yep.
Okay. I just wanted to, I have a couple of things, but first I want to just focus on countering a comment made by Ms. Swales, where she said that she has spoken with many elementary teachers who are afraid to speak up positively about this change, because I've had the exact opposite experience. I've had well over a dozen elementary teachers who have been fearful to speak up against it based on repercussions that would happen to them in all of these cuts that are being threatened towards them. I've also heard that administrators have been reaching out to encourage people to speak out for them. And I'm just wondering how one person is getting reprimanded for speaking their mind and another person is getting encouraged to. That seems like it's a pretty shifty business, if you ask me. I also wanted to count on the change is hard quote. Our kids have been through quite a bit of change, and I don't think forcing more on them is the route to go. I emailed everybody on the board today. I thank you for the responses from the people who I did. I know I have to talk fast, but I'm going to read very quickly for those of you who did not get to read it, my thoughts on this. So I have taken it upon myself to speak to over 100 members of our community. I have sought out community members, teachers, parents, and students from every building in our district. And the data overwhelmingly shows that the community feels that this change is not only unnecessary at this point in time, but also insulting and seemingly pretty opportunistic. Our superintendent has asked you guys to make this rash decision, not based on the well-being of our student body, but instead on a very incomplete financial forecast that is changing daily. In the beginning, the news made the financial shortcomings of our schools seem very dismal, but since this has been proposed, new information and new hope has surfaced in the form of both state and federal aid for all of Michigan's schools. I'm going to stop real fast and counter that. Mr. Minka said that we should be fine for this year, but next year will be the problem. No, I don't have the direct quote, but that is what he said. I've also heard a lot of quotes from the board members today that said things like, we don't know what this year looks like. There's a lot of unknowns. All of this has been said. So if we have all these unknowns and things might be okay, why are we doing this to our kids right now? Why not give it the year, like the speaker, I don't know if it was right before me, said, and figure it out a little bit more rationally. Okay, I'm a mother of 4 kids that go to
Kimberly, I'm
Swartz.
sorry to interrupt. You have 19 seconds.
Okay, so you may change, you may convince me that changes this is good for our school, but not this year, not when our kids are the most emotionally vulnerable that they will ever be. You guys are our vote because we don't have it. So speak for our children and speak for us. That's it.
Thank you, Kimberly.
Thank you.
Thank you. Next up is Michelle Wildy, 5300 Oak View Drive. Michelle, you're unmuted.
Thank you. I've had the privilege of serving as principal at Cyrene for 10 years now. With regard to the elementary model discussion, it is true that the coronavirus crisis has brought this topic up again suddenly. I understand the anxiety that change creates, and I love the relationships that I've built with my staff, students, and families. However, there exists an underlying problem and need at the elementary level that has been there and growing for many years. The inefficiencies in the way our buildings are configured. Oh, sorry. Can you hear me now?
Yes.
Can you hear me now? Okay. Should I start again?
I think it's just Carrie.
I could hear you before, so I think it might be on Carrie's end. No, you just want to continue.
Okay. All right. The inefficiencies in the way our buildings are configured do not just affect our budget and bottom line. They affect student learning as well. Every year we end up with high numbers of students in certain buildings and grade levels and lower numbers in others. Every year we solve this problem with reactive instead of proactive solutions. These reactive solutions lack equity for the students involved, and I would be remiss if I didn't speak up on behalf of those students. In past years, when we reach the maximum number of students in a class in a building, sometimes students being enrolled are then placed at a different building and shuttled daily. The shuttle bus arrives late and picks up early in order to get students to and from the other elementary building to catch their bus. Those students miss out on about 30 minutes of instructional time daily, which adds up to a tremendous loss over the course of a school year. Another reactive solution is to take small numbers in one grade and combine them with small numbers in another grade, creating split grade classrooms. It's challenging for teachers to teach all of the standards in one grade level in the course of one school year. To do so with 2 grade levels in the same class at the same time is nearly impossible. If those students miss out on learning some of their grade level standards, then they are behind the students that were not in the split. A third reactive solution involves hiring and adding another teacher at a building. Last year, DEEC reached 40 students enrolled in kindergarten. The decision was made to add a second section and hire a teacher. This type of solution can be made when the district has money in the budget to do so. DEEC kindergarten students last year enjoyed a low class size of 20 students, while every other kindergarten class in the district experienced overloads of 27 to 28 students. This model would even out our class sizes more effectively. Continuing to be reactive in solving this problem results in serious equity issues.
Michelle,
Other
you
districts have
30
faced,
seconds.
yes, thank you. Other districts have faced and solved these problems over the years in a number of different ways, either closing buildings, redrawing boundaries for elementary attendance areas, or reconfiguring grade levels as we are now discussing. None of these changes are taken lightly, and there is no one solution that will make everyone happy. The question that we have to face as a district is, what is the most equitable decision for student learning that also creates savings for our district and greater opportunities for collaboration among our teachers? I appreciate board members' time and dedication, and I thank you for your leadership under these very difficult conditions.
Thanks, Michelle.
Thank you, Michelle. Travis, just so you know, Carrie had to sign off. She's going to try and sign back in.
Sure. Should we continue though? Next up is going to be Marie.
I think we should wait just so that she can be present for the public comment.
Okay. Okay.
So I think we should just pause and give her a couple minutes, and then the people that are waiting to speak can be, that she can hear their comments as well.
Ben, I have a response from Carrie. She says she can't get back into her account to sign in. Go ahead without me.
Maybe we could see, I mean, I certainly guess that's up to the board. I think if maybe Travis, if you could just connect with her, because of the nature of the people that want to speak, I think it would be important for her to hear all the comments. If, you know, and certainly if the board wants to continue without, that's fine. Maybe we could see if we could get her into the meeting. I don't want someone to be disadvantaged because they didn't get their comment heard by one of our board members.
Okay. Yep, I see it here. Carol's out there.
Mused.
Hey. All right, I think she's trying a different device. I was trying to get a link to her too.
Okay, she's back.
I think
Okay.
I accidentally logged in on my phone too, Travis, if you can delete that one. I don't know how to. I'm on twice now.
Okay, I am so sorry, everybody. Something happened. I froze and then I lost everybody, so I apologize.
No problem. We're gonna move along now. Next up is Marie Ovsnetic at 3125 Derby Lane. Marie, I'm gonna go ahead and unmute you, and you can start whenever.
Can you hear me okay?
Yep.
Perfect. Thank you for the time to comment today. I would like to share my concerns regarding the elementary model change. This was first brought up over a year ago in the winter of 2019, and we had talked about the pros and cons, but eventually it came down to it being a short timeline that wasn't appealing to execute properly for the following school year. There was also a little long-term research to show that it was a positive change for our children. Discussion on the topic shouldn't be any different tonight. The outstanding issues of transportation, moving our materials from building to building, giving teachers the proper resources to adjust to new classrooms, and the time to collaborate with each other on new curriculums will completely affect the quality of education for our children come September. It's only a couple months away. We may save on costs, but we're going to greatly degrade the quality of education with little execution time. It's not worth it in our eyes to change this for the fall of 2020. In addition, there has been data provided to show, by the superintendent as well as in my own research to show the positive change to student education and well-being over time. We've seen a lot of opinions and articles, but not data. We hear that we want to serve our students first and do what's best for them. This model is the opposite of doing the best for our students right now. They've been living through the impacts of COVID-19 since March, where there's proximity of a grade level. It may be good for staff and students eventually, but not right now. There are students that are like mine, they're excited to go back to their home school and to see their teachers and staff members that they got abruptly, broken relationships from, see their classmates, their friends, and they want to move on to whatever the new normal is going to become fall. The state hasn't even provided the full roadmap yet for face-to-face instruction. I think doing this model change will just add another complexity to how we have to execute face-to-face instruction come September. There's a lot of social, emotional, life-changing things that have happened to them. Throwing the elementary model change to them is just another hurdle that it doesn't serve their education right now. Let them deal with one thing at a time. I mean, how can we, even as teachers and administrators, how do you guys have enough time to make these changes in 2 months while saving on the budget? Are we going to give the staff enough training and resources to not only do the change, but to help them overcome whatever negative impacts they have from COVID-19?
Maria, I'm sorry to interrupt you. 20 seconds.
Okay. I urge that you guys find less impactful changes to maintain our kids' day-to-day operations while they're at school for this upcoming year. We don't even know the exact budget cuts from the state. Other districts, I know we're all doing the same thing, having the same kind of conversation. What can we do with that is less impactful for kids? But we need to think about their future first, their social emotional aspect first.
Marie, that's your time, and I appreciate your comments.
Thank you. Have a good night.
Thank you.
Thank you. Next up is Chelsea Thomas from 5035 Duffield Road. And
And I am currently,
you're unmuted. Sorry, go ahead.
that's okay. Hi, my name is Chelsea Thomas, and I am currently teaching first grade at Ring Elementary. During my 7 years of teaching for the district, change has been something we expect, however, not always something we all welcome. It takes time to adapt, and being flexible is not always easy when it comes to uprooting our routines and stepping outside of our comfort zones. That being said, when the idea of readjusting our buildings was first mentioned, I must admit I was a bit apprehensive, but after taking time to better understand how this process will work and researching the benefits, it is easy to see the positive aspects much overcome my worries. I would like to share some of these examples of what I see as benefits into changing our buildings. Last year, we began as teachers to dive into our practice deeper by exploring our learning standards, purpose, success criteria. With the current building and grade structure, we were limited by time and distance when trying to collaborate with our same grade peers. We did our best by sharing information via spreadsheet, but this removes the spontaneous sharing that occurs in a face-to-face setting that is easier to achieve when same grades are all in one building. I consider our future lesson planning. As you know, teachers spend hours developing elaborate lesson plans every week for their students. To a teacher, there is no greater resource than their fellow teachers when putting together these ideas. Rather than having one teaching partner to collaborate with in our building, how amazing would it be to have 3 to 4 to bounce ideas off when putting together engaging material for all of our little learners? Additionally, by having a grade team, duplicate tasks could be eliminated, creating a more time-efficient structure. I can also see the benefit of this closing the gap across our district with the curriculum and where students pick up and leave off in their material. With more of our same grade level teachers in one building, we can collaborate, ensuring students receive a uniform curriculum. This will also improve the students' transition to the next grade each and every year. A huge benefit to this structure is the balanced class sizes. First grade, for example, is a huge year developmentally for our little kiddos. Many experience those light bulb moments where the connections are made and the reading finally comes together. Having 28 first graders versus another classroom having 20 makes a significant difference in one-to-one time with their teacher working on their reading skills. In addition, I consider the 30 to 45 minutes each day of lost education time that my students spend being bused to Ring from other buildings due to overcrowding. Not only are
Chelsea,
they
I'm
missing
sorry to interrupt
instruction,
you. 24 seconds. Thank you.
but they are starting and ending their day on a completely different routine as their peers, which is also difficult at their age. When I consider my years of experience in the same grade level and how this has helped me grow as an educator, I have dug deeper into my content, where my kids are developmentally, and what they need from me emotionally. Should our numbers in students and funding continue to fluctuate, I worry the change of shifting teachers year to year could change. The list continues when considering
Chelsea,
benefits of our district.
Chelsea, I'm sorry you're out of time, but thank you for your comments.
Thank you.
Appreciate it.
Thank you. Next up is going to be Andrea Fick from 6218 Oak Farm Road. Andrea, you are unmuted.
Sorry, just needed to unmute my phone on my end. So I understand that something needs to give up because of changes, whether it's because of the pandemic or just the general budget. And I understand there's pros and cons, and sorry about breath. I was out running with the dog. But it's really unfortunate we didn't do this last year when it was on the table. I feel like I feel like the administration was bullied into not doing it because some people didn't like it. And now here we're in a crunch for something we should have done a year ago that we'd be more prepared for. I'm not saying we're not prepared, but when everyone talks about how little time there is to do it, this could have been done already a year ago. Again, sorry, didn't know it was going to be up so fast. Anyways, I'm very curious. I've heard people mention that if this goes through, they're going to pull their kids, go to a different district. I know a lot of districts out there do this already, but my big question for the board is, how many students do we get currently coming from other districts where those parents don't want to be part of this plan? Okay, so I'm kind of reversing that. Do we see an influx of school of choice kids where parents are saying, I don't want to be part of this model, so I'm coming to your district? I'm just curious. Another thing I'm curious about is, what does Ben have to gain from this? Because I hear that a lot. And quite honestly, I understand the decision is the board's, not necessarily Ben's. But we're not trendsetters here. This is not something anybody's going to get a pat on the back for developing this plan and starting it. So not really sure why there's all the slander against Ben or the board for, doing this decision. It's so personal. It's politically driven. We're behind the 8 ball, people. This is not something that is new and that we're trend setting. This is something that's happening in other districts all over the place. And to be honest, when I heard it last year on the board, I was super excited, thinking, I'm bummed my kid missed out on this. He was going in 6th grade, already in 6th grade, and was in plenty of classrooms where he barely knew any kids. And he came from Elms, one of the biggest 5th grade classes out there, and he still didn't know kids in middle school. And I thought, how awesome would it have been for him to know so many more kids? And let's face it, as parents, we drop the ball when our kids go to middle school. I'm not sure why, but it made me step back and think, are we in the same boat as parents? Do we get to the middle school open house and walk the hallways and think, oh my God, I don't know half these parents anymore. I've parented with the same people for 6 years.
15 seconds.
That's okay. That's okay. So I think we need to step back as parents and realize how great it would be to parent as a group for 3 years at a time with one another. And we also need to remember that we are Swartz Creek. We're not Elms, Gaines, Irene, high school, middle school, etc. So thank you for your time. Appreciate it.
Thank you, Andrea. Appreciate it.
Thank you. Next up is going to be Jamie Scrivener from 7235 Reed Road. And you are unmuted. Start when you feel like it.
So I would like to start off by being very transparent with the community and board members. As of tonight, I have not attended a board meeting until tonight. In the past, I have filled out surveys, expressed my thoughts and opinions to staff and administration in the school where my sons attend. I've had faith in the board members to make informed decisions based on facts and data. The reason for my attendance tonight is due to the rush and a vote regarding this elementary model configuration. It is my opinion, and the more I've listened to this board meeting, I've also had current staff members who've reached out to me. Staff members are afraid to speak out their true feelings. They're afraid about repercussions or disciplinary action for administration, or these same staff members are fearful of getting laid off or speaking the truth. This is not acceptable for any staff member in any environment, and I would consider it borderline bullying. We teach our children not to do this. I am a current teacher within Genesee County. I've taught 15 years. I've had experience teaching children with disabilities. I've done many years of research and dove into emotional and mental health of students. If this was the best model for students academically and socially emotional, I ask of the board, why was this model not approved last year? Why was it brought to the table then and put aside? Now it's currently a financial concern at this time. Currently, our children and our community are still dealing with the COVID-19 pandemic. School districts have been told there's going to be budget cuts, and I understand the need to develop a plan that will keep the district financially sound. However, I do not think this restructuring is the answer. All children are going to return to school in the fall, whatever that might look like. They're going to need emotional support now more than ever. They need to see those familiar faces greeting them back for the first day. They need closure from this year. I know school is going to look vastly different in the fall, and children are going to experience these changes of uncertainty. They'll be taught a whole new set of rules and regulations for their health and safety. Our students deserve the right to a familiar place with familiar friends and staff. It upsets me to hear people keep referring to children and students as resilient. Swartz Creek Community Schools has touted the use of trauma-informed care. So why in the world are we putting our children into any position to have to endure potentially more trauma they have already encountered during the school closures resulting from the pandemic?
Jamie, you have 22 seconds.
As I understand this model, we are looking at letting 6 teachers go. I also understand between 10 and 20 staff members have been told or they're talking about laying off those teachers. If we eliminate 6 teaching positions, how are we going to have them called back in the fall? I also want to know where this data is. Where is the survey that we filled out? Why has it not been shared within the community? Why?
Jamie, I'm sorry, your time is up, but we appreciate your comments.
I implore the board to put this vote aside. Do what's right for our children. Do what's best for the children. We're looking at it financially.
Jamie, I'm sorry, but we're going to move on to the next caller. Thank you.
Thank you. Next up is going to be Dave Simonson from 9417 Country Club Lane. Dave,
can you hear me?
Yep.
Okay. Appreciate the opportunity to speak to you and the Swartz Creek community regarding my support for adjusting the elementary model. We've heard it tonight a couple of times, change is hard, and I hate to be cliche about it. But I would like the parents that are listening to know that I hear your concerns loud and clear, and I'm glad to know that many of you have really thought this through, even those that are opposed to it. I just wanted to let you all know that the building principals are all committed to assisting with a strong transition should this measure come to pass, and we will work together as a team with our families. Some of the biggest concerns I've heard revolve around the social emotional well-being of the kids and how that may then bleed into their academic performance. One of the studies that was put out on Facebook a couple of weeks ago talked about the problems that students show academically with their mobility from building to building. And the study does make a compelling argument to reduce the number of moves that students must make throughout their school years. But in the reading of the full article, 88% of those schools in the study were from K-5, K-6, or K-8 configured buildings, and the structural moves that they're referring to that show those negative trends in academics are the kids moving into the middle school level. And so this transition that we're talking about, I just want to encourage everybody that this is a completely different discussion than the one that they're referring to in a lot of these mobility studies. The mobility of students from school to school a lot of times is due to moving in and out, and these structural changes that are scheduled by districts actually at the elementary level look a lot more like what that study called as an articulated non-structural move or planned move. And those moves generally reflect higher academic achievement because they're planned. And so I believe that this move to a K235 model will allow for a lot of the things that have been touted by some of the colleagues here, talking about working together with each other as teachers in buildings and groups larger at the grade level that can be then, working with larger groups of students. And the nice thing about that is that in those buildings, the kids are going to know more kids in their class, and they're not going to leave those kids after 3 years. They're going to move with those kids to a new building where then they can make new memories. And when they get to the end of that school, say the 3-5 building, they're going to the middle school knowing almost half, if not more than half of the grade, rather than the model we have now.
20 seconds, I'm sorry.
Okay, no problem. Rather than going to the middle school, not knowing hardly any students going in. So other schools that do this in our county, Goodrich, Davison, Lake Fenton, all have very successful academics, and I would just encourage the community to look on the bright side with that and move forward with it.
Thank you, Dave. Appreciate your comments.
Thank you.
Thank you. Next up is Carrie Bell from 12855 Crossshire Drive. Carrie, you are unmuted.
All right. Hi, everybody. I teach at the middle school, but I'm not going to be talking as a teacher today because I don't teach elementary. So I'm only talking as a parent. I have 2 kids. They are both enrolled in Grand Blanc now. My daughter's going to come to Swartz Creek once she hits 6th grade. Here's my experience. I enrolled my son, he was my first one, at Perry Center because as a parent, I wanted both of my kids in the same building, and that was a K-8 building. My home school where they should have went was Cook Mason, and it split like they're proposing. I didn't want that. So my son went to kindergarten. First grade came around. It was a lottery type situation. He did not get picked in the lottery. I was devastated. We had to go back to our home school, which was Cook and Mason. Cook is K through 2. Mason is 3rd through 5th. I thought, all right, I'm just going to give it a chance. I loved it. I absolutely loved it. Here's what I loved about it. For the K through 2, 1st and 2nd grade, both of my kids looped. So they had the same teacher for 1st and 2nd grade. That is the time when these kids learn to read. My daughter came into 1st grade struggling as a reader. I don't know if you know DRA levels, but she came in at a 4 in 1st grade, which is really low. She left 2nd grade at a 20, which is really high. Then in the 3rd through 5th building, what I loved is the team teaching. The teachers got to teach their specialty. I don't know if this is what you guys are thinking for our elementaries, but if a teacher was specialized in ELA, they taught ELA, then the kids might move to someone else who really specializes in math. So I just wanted to give my perspective as a parent who did not want this at all. And it really, I'm glad. I'm actually very, very thankful that this ended up happening. So I know change is hard. It was hard for me too, but I ended up loving it.
Carrie, you have 22 seconds.
I'm done.
Okay, thank you. Thank you.
Carrie, I got a message from Jessica that she was kicked off, so she's trying to log back in as well.
Thank you. Thank you, Alicia.
Okay, thank you. Next up is Lindsay Bohm from 5300 Oakview.
Travis, I think we should wait until that way, just to be fair, that we don't have a board member not hearing the public comment.
Okay, looks like Jessica should be coming back in now.
I'm here. Thank you.
Okay. Moving on, we got Lindsay Bohm from 5300 Oakview. Lindsay, you are unmuted. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. I will start with Chelsea Thomas's closing statement before starting my thoughts, as I believe this is truly where our focus should remain. The list continues when considering the positive benefits of the district-wide change. The changes to our routines and the minor inconveniences will all work themselves out if we remain focused on what is most important. Ultimately, this building change is allowing our staff to provide the best learning environment and education possible for our students. And at the end of the day, that is why we are here. That in itself has to be our first priority and the reason we make the right decision moving forward. And now I'm going to start with my own. My name is Lindsay Bohm. I teach second grade at Cyrene Elementary, and I just completed my 15th year of teaching. Throughout the past 15 years of my career, I have encountered many different changes. Change can be very overwhelming and challenging. However, it can also be beneficial when given the time to overcome the scariness of it all. I get these exact feelings when thinking about the possibility of the elementary buildings being restructured into K2 and 3-5 buildings. Although I feel that this would be a smart move for our district and would impact our students and educators in a positive way. There are several benefits that immediately cross my mind when changing the structure, with the main one being collaboration. Having more grade level teachers in each building would allow more collaboration between teachers, which will provide a stronger education for students and can contribute to increased student success. This structure would allow more teachers in a grade level to share their ideas and strengths with each other, which can increase growth and knowledge in our teachers. When working together, teachers create positive professional and personal relationships that allow us to support one another. When these relationships are formed and the support is there, teachers can work together successfully in planning, creating goals to help increase student achievement, share in professional learning, and much more. Collaboration is the key to success and our students' growth and development. Thank you for allowing me the opportunity to share.
Thank you, Lindsay.
Thank you. Next up, we have Bethany Cross from 4298 Mount Vernon. Bethany, you are unmuted.
Hi. At first, I was completely upset with the idea of the elementary reconfiguration. I'm still unsure if this is a positive change. I have spoke with the superintendent through email and phone, and I can't tell you how much that helped ease a lot of my concerns. He was very professional with it. As there does seem to be a concern of mental effect, and of course, there's still a concern of mine. Our children have been through a lot these past few months, and I know my own missed their old life. My own children will be in 3 different schools with this model, so I asked my incoming 4th grader what she thinks about the change to Elms. She is excited about the idea of making new friends. She is, of course, upset about leaving her homeschool of Moorish at the end of the current year. She and I do look forward to the different educational benefits that will be available with the change. She'll have more opportunities available to her. I have seen our current proficiency score, and I do wonder now if this change will be a positive change that we do need now. So I do ask, though, since so many people are concerned, with everyone being upset about the idea of change now in the transition period, what are the big benefits of this reconfiguration? And thank you for your time.
Thank you, Bethany.
Thank you. Next up is Jason Bennett. I believe he just joined the call. 6287 St. Charles. Jason, you are unmuted.
Okay, thanks. Sorry. So really, I don't think I can add to anything that I haven't already shared with the board and my concerns and my disagreement in my emails. And I really don't think I can add to what other community members have said that are against this. The only things I want to kind of speak publicly about and share now is the fact that, you know, the board needs to take a hard look at how the community will respond to this when they find out that this change is happening. When it was proposed last time, steps were taken to get it out to the community members to make sure the community was behind it, and it was quickly stopped because we realized the community wasn't behind it and it wasn't the right change for the district at this time. Those steps haven't been taken this time, and there's several community members out there that don't know this is happening, several parents in the schools that don't know this is happening. I understand the need for financial changes and the need to adapt in this situation, but there's several options out there that we can look at without trying to sneak this into the community that's unaware. And aside from that, I just encourage you guys to take the time to do the research, see if it's right for our district, and reach out to those teachers that do feel silenced upon this and see why they feel like they're silenced and see what the culture really is in this district. Thanks.
Thank you, Jason.
Thank you. Next up is Jacqueline Thompson from 6360 Crescent Court. Jacqueline, you're unmuted.
Okay, thank you. As a first grade teacher at Morris with 13 years in education, I fully support the K2 3-5 school model. In my opinion, speaking as a first grade teacher and in the K2 model, students would extremely benefit from a more specialized early literacy development, meaning that it would be easy to support our younger readers and provide more instruction for students at all reading levels. Teachers would be able to provide better early literacy instruction as a team with teachers as well as support staff and intervention. And generally, in a K-5 model, our staff is focused on providing reading support to ages 5 to 10 plus. This is a huge range in reading levels and reading complexity. Specifically focusing on grades kindergarten through second grade would allow students more opportunities for reading support. As a staff, it would allow us to really dig deeper in the area of reading and provide better intervention, support, and instruction because the range and complexity would be less focusing on just kindergarten through second grade. Not only would it be beneficial for reading instruction, but it would allow teachers to really dig deeper in curriculum development in all subject areas. This model would be most impactful academically right now more than ever, especially with our year being cut due to COVID-19. Personally, I can really attest to this model because my own children in our home district go to a school where this is ran. This model has really allowed my children to grow as leaders at a very early age. Starting in kindergarten, they were able to apply character development lessons in real world scenarios within their school and take leadership in their own leadership abilities. Generally, in a normal K-5 model, students at older grade levels are the ones that really take the lead in different school activities. Does this model create change in our district that we've talked about tonight? Yes. Is it difficult? Extremely. However, change can be extremely effective, allowing our students to have more opportunities to learn both academically and socially. And this is why I really support our model in Swartz Creek. Thank you.
Thank you, Jacqueline.
Thank you. Last one up is Tanya Brownfield from 4315 Mays Avenue. Tanya, you are unmuted.
Hey, good evening. Can you hear me?
Yep.
Okay. Well, before I begin, I just wanted to take this opportunity also to thank all of the parents of our school district first for showing so much support and understanding during our remote learning adventure. All of the teachers in the district will be forever grateful. I don't think we have felt any more pride in our district during that time. So I just want to extend that and tell you thank you. I'd also like to share a few positive outcomes that I feel could happen if we adopt a K2 3-5 model. And understand, when teachers are speaking to the positives, we are not dismissing the concerns of parents and we are not dismissing the concerns of our colleagues. And I can't necessarily prove that one model is better than the other, but I can share some positive outcomes if we move to this transition. I just finished my second year teaching our sixth graders. Absolutely loved it. Previous to that, I spent close to 16 years teaching our fourth graders at Beek Elementary. Loved that too. But moving to the middle school last year was a huge eye-opener to me. I was watching and I began to understand why many students struggle with adapting to the sixth grade transition. There's so much newness. It's such a big change and expected responsibility, and that was the common factor. We have 5 elementary schools merging for the first time, and students are expected to navigate a hallway with sometimes up to 330 other students/strangers. At the same time, they're managing locker storage, locker comms, locker partners. They're managing passing time. They're managing being organized for 5 different teachers' subject areas. Understandably, these are typical middle school growing pains and rites of passage. clearly, but moving to a K2-3-5 model could help ease with this transition. It allows for the opportunity to get students ready for a sixth grade transition, lessening fear and anxiety, while gradually increasing levels of responsibility as students move between 2 to 3 different teachers or classes each day. With a teaming approach also, teaming teachers of the same grade level / subject area will have access to our best resources for PD, our teachers. At this moment, time before school or after school, Monday through Friday, or Monday through Thursday, is already allocated. It's already set aside as PD during our day for collaboration. We all have areas of strengths and we all have areas of weaknesses. That is why, in my opinion, team teaching can be so beneficial to our students. Teaching
Tanya,
STEM
sorry,
scares
you
the
have 25 seconds.
Okay, teaching STEM scares the bejesus out of me, but I have other teachers that can do it much better than I can. Those teachers need to teach my students. It's not fair if there isn't equity among instruction. And I also do believe really quickly that our Title I funds would be spent more equally and efficiently if we went to this model. We would be able to give the lower L students more support. Thank you for your time. And
Thank you. Thank you.
Yep. You're welcome.
Thank you. I apologize. I had one more person I missed. Brandy Scarberry from 562 Old Crook Circle. And Brandy, you are unmuted.
All right, thank you. Hello, my name is Brandy Scarberry. I'm a kindergarten teacher at Cyrene Elementary and just completed my 7th year in the classroom. I am here to speak upon the recent plan of reconfiguring our elementary buildings into a K2-3-5 model. The idea of such a drastic change to our district can definitely be both overwhelming and frustrating at first. Trust me, myself, I feel these emotions too. However, I do believe that such change can offer significant benefits for not only the students, but the entire educational team that works daily with our children. 2 main points that I would like to touch on as far as this type of reconfiguration are balanced class sizes and teacher collaboration. Splitting up the elementary buildings based on lower and upper grade levels allows for those buildings to focus more of their attention on that range of development within the particular building itself. The idea of balanced class sizes is addressed as a positive change for this type of reconfiguration, which would significantly impact the quality and quantity of instruction being implemented to our students. Speaking as a kindergarten teacher, the years when I've had 25 or more students in my classroom, it has definitely made things difficult in terms of relationship building, classroom management, and the quality and quantity of my instruction. Essential learning time tends to get replaced, which affects the ability to provide students with the instruction and attention they deserve for their individual needs. Balanced class sizes gives teachers the ability to provide students with direct instruction in more small groups and one-on-one opportunities. Along with this, allows for more relationship building experiences between teachers and students. If this change were to go through, it would open a number of doors for collaboration, especially for teachers. If teachers are able to be in a building with more grade level colleagues instead of just 1 or 2 or none, they are able to collaborate, mentor, and support each other through direct daily interactions. This type of communication allows for teachers to be on the same page throughout the district, allowing our students to receive the same amount of curriculum and close that gap. Also, in closing, during my college career, I was able to experience this type of model firsthand during one of my course placements. The building in which I was assigned was set up in a similar manner and model, in which I was amazed on how cohesive and effective the entire building operated, from the students, the staff, the parents, and the community. Change is definitely difficult. However, I do believe this type of move could influence our elementary buildings in our district in the exact same way. Thank you.
Brandy, thank you. Thank you. You have 23 seconds. Thank you.
Thanks.
That concludes public comment. Carrie.
Thank you, Travis. Appreciate that. And I want to thank all of the folks who might still be listening. We want to thank you for your comments, thoughtful comments, and your passion for your children, their education. And we're all sitting on this board because we value that as well. So with that, I guess I would ask the board, do you need to take a break before we move on, or do you want to move on to the last discussion? No? Okay. So Ben, the last item on our agenda this evening is a discussion of the elementary reconfiguration. And I want to turn this over to Ben so he can talk about the survey and some other items. And then I would encourage all of our board members, once it's our time, is to actively discuss this topic. So Ben, would you like to start?
Sure, thank you. I also appreciate the passion with which people have spoken tonight, regardless of which side. I will say that I think that it's important as we get into this discussion, and I'm not going to address any type of attacks that people have made at individuals, but I certainly do hope that we can keep dialogue when it surrounds these things. It's not about what's good and what's bad. It's really about what's good and what's good. We're talking about two very decent plans. We have a K-5 model that many of our community members have loved. We've heard that tonight. And we're proposing a model that's not bad for kids, and it doesn't harm kids. We're proposing a model that is widely accepted. And so I think it's important that we don't reduce the dialogue down to personal attacks or allow the dialogue to drone into something that would become uncivil. We have to be able to understand that there are two very viable options here. Furthermore, I'm very excited with whichever model we go to. I believe that if we stay in a K-5 model, if that's the decision, I'll be excited to say that we're going to have the best K-5 schools that we can. And I think if the decision is to move to this reconfiguration, it's going to be a great move as well. So our staff remains committed to service this community, and there's no one that's got any kind of personal benefit to it. We are asked and have been asked by both the state superintendent, the Michigan Department of Education, and every state association that the $1 billion shortfall in this year's budget and next year's budget is not going to go away. We know that there are cuts that have to be made, and we've been told that we need to act now. We've been systematically working on our operation to reduce expenditures. We've talked through many of those things in the past, including not only our operational expenses, but also how we can become more efficient with ordering supplies, with employees that are willing to step up and move into different roles and to be as efficient as possible. We're going to continue to do that regardless of the circumstances. Also, I believe that there will be some additional information that does come through relative to staff willing to step up and help in this budget crisis, and that will certainly start with me at the top. And we know that there are many of us who are more than willing to take those concessions as they're needed. I will say that from the beginning, I've tried to present both of these sides that, for the board's consideration, I've shared multiple points. I will say what the discussion should center on is the reconfiguration of the elementary school would be for Cyrene Elementary School and Moorish Elementary School to become a K-2 early elementary school. I would also say that the 3-5 buildings would become Elms and Moorish, with Gaines remaining as a K-5 building. I will say that much of this is due to proximity and the challenges that exist with trying to mobilize the Gaines children into that model. I will also let you know, as we look at these as we look at this model compared to our current K-5 model, I have made the comment in the past, and I want to reiterate the comment that when it comes to empirical research, there's very little empirical research to support elementary configurations. Most of the empirical research that's done is for the middle level. And so we have to look to the other benefits, the ancillary benefits, which many people have spoken about already. I know I've shared those out. And then obviously there are some inherent challenges. That argument, though, cuts both ways, as there is no empirical evidence that staying in a K-5 model is particularly powerful or beneficial for our children. So when we start talking about studies and research, we have to look to secondary factors such as grouping of children. We have to look to secondary factors such as teacher collaboration. and some of those social emotional supports that are created in this type of a model. Again, I want to reiterate, we will put forth the best elementary schools we can, whichever model is decided. I do also want to certainly make myself available during your discussion to answer questions wherever you ask or if it's appropriate. I do want to make two other quick points, not for or against the model, but just simply to as a point of information. Number one, the vast majority of our teachers will maintain teaching the same grade level. So if there's a teacher that's teaching at Morrish Elementary School in 4th grade, they likely would be moving to Elms Road to teach 4th grade at Elms Road, and conversely, those teachers moving together. We're minimizing changes with staff, and so we know that we want to try and keep those staff teaching the same grade level cohorts that they have been in the event that the board decides to adopt this model. So that should hopefully, just as a point of emphasis, we're not looking at just moving teachers all over the district. We're looking at trying to keep them in their groups and in their grouped cohorts with the grade levels that they've been teaching. I also would think it would be important, just again, to share both sides of everything that's going on. And as I've tried to be completely above board about all of that, I've got a situation that, a survey that was sent out. We did have this sent out a couple different times. At this point, we have had 395 responses. Just so that you understand this first graphic, the question was, do you strongly oppose the school configuration? Strongly oppose was the 0. Strongly support was a 5. So you can see that the highest two rates of response, the highest being strongly opposed at 149, and the second highest being strongly support with 93. And I think that there's some evidence there. So if you look at the loosely supporting group and the loosely opposing group, with the highest being strongly opposed, you do see that the numbers are relatively close. You have a 50.6% response rate on the opposed and a 49.4% response rate on support. The additional question that was asked was, given the choice between cutting other student programs and moving to the upper lower ELA model, which is your preference? You can see here that 53% of people selected to move to an upper and lower elementary model and preserve other student programs, while 46.8% say keep the elementary model exactly how they are and cut other student programs. I understand that there might be some question as to the way that question is worded, and it's worded that way specifically because our purpose and our plan, anytime we look at proposing any kind of budgetary cut, is to look at decisions that would not impact students in a negative way. While there's obviously some disagreement on that, we have taken a look at saying, what can we do to ensure that not only are we not cutting student programs, but possibly enhancing a student experience? And so we really wanted to say, this particular change would not have to reduce those offerings. Certainly it's really a decision for the board to look at that. But this is the data from the survey. And of course, I have also sent you the board, the other, just the raw data from the 395 responses. So I'll be here if you have questions, and certainly want to just allow the board to dialogue and discuss this topic.
Thank you, Ben. So I'd like to go through our board members and get your feedback so that you all have a chance to weigh in. And maybe by doing that, we can start the conversation. Does anybody want to begin?
I have two things. Can you go over the building configurations again? What Elms, Beek, Cyrene, and Morrish, what are they going to be?
Yeah, so the proposed configurations would be that Cyrene would be a K2 early elementary school. Morrish would be a K2 early elementary school. Cyrene would move and travel to Deke as they progress to third grade, and Deke would become a 3 to 5 upper elementary school. And then we would have Elms Road becoming a 3 to 5 upper elementary school, which would be receiving the students from Moorish. Gaines would remain in a K-5 self-contained model.
I think for me, the big thing is when we knew these budget cuts were coming, I was afraid we were going to lose student services. And I'm happy if we decide to do this, I'm not losing student services and actually enhancing them. So that's what I'm happy about with this.
Thank you, Tony. Anyone else?
Before I give my feedback, can I actually ask a question to Ben for everyone's benefit? I know a lot of question has been up regarding the busing. Can you speak to that at all?
Certainly. Right now, obviously, we're awaiting whether or not the board is deciding to stick with our current model or move into a reconfiguration. We have mapped out 2 plans for transportation, and we're going to be looking and doing some more research on which plan is going to be most effective. The first plan will allow for the upper and lower elementary children at the same location to be picked up and transported. The early elementary students would be dropped off first, and then the upper elementary students would be shuttled to the upper elementary building. So you would have the students travel together. And so the advantage of that plan, of course, siblings traveling on the same bus. A lot of times parents want to see their older child and their younger child travel together. There's a lot of benefits to that. And so that's certainly one plan. That plan does not cost very much at all in terms of additional funding. There will be some increase in routes, but the cost is quite negligible. The second plan is a little bit more costly, but also reduces the amount of time that the upper elementary children would be on the bus. And that particular plan would involve students in the upper elementary school and the lower elementary school being picked up separately. So, for example, there would be a bus that would come by and pick up the lower elementary school students and take them directly to the school. And there would be a bus that would come by and pick up the upper elementary students and take them directly to the school. Our transportation department has worked out details and in preparation of the decision. And we're fully confident that we'll be able to transport our children safely. So those are the 2 plans that we're analyzing at this time.
Does the first scenario that you mentioned for the buses affect start time for school?
Yes, actually, both of these would affect start time. So there's going to be about a 15-minute stagger time start for the upper elementary school and the lower elementary school. So that would happen in either case. Right now, we're looking at school start time for the schools, one of the levels being at 8:25 and the other being at 8:40, so that there would be about a 15-minute time relief for anyone that's driving their own children, but certainly also for the buses to shuttle the students. The time it takes to get from Cyrene to Deke and the time it takes to get from Moorish to Elms is very manageable within that time frame. And certainly with some of the construction going on and alleviating some of the site work challenges that exist at those buildings will make that even more possible.
Thank you. Brian, did you have something?
Yeah, I just want to thank the community for the wonderful input we had. Heartfelt, compassionate, and I truly understand a lot. I've got grandkids in the school now, but I understand a lot of these things that were brought up. The social, emotional states that the possible traumas that are going on. But I also believe the bigger picture, the benefit outweighs the negatives. And I really believe listening to the teachers, the staff, principals, this is a great thing. And these seats were, they were planted last year, And so I've been thinking about this for at least a year now, thinking, why is it we're not doing this? Why is it? And so it comes down to these last few months where it comes down to a budget crisis. So that kind of stirred things up and provoked this to move a little bit quicker. But I think it's going to be great for our school. I think this whole learning system, the new style, the team teaching, the professional learning, academic growth, all these things that we look at, looking at the students first. The budget part of it is a far cry secondary to what I see the benefit of reaching the students' academic growth. So I really believe, and with our professional teaching staff, our teachers, our administrative building principals, and everybody that's involved with the school, I think all the little hiccups, we'll have it worked out. I have confidence and belief that we will be able to roll this out and have it ready by the beginning of the school year, even with the safety measures we're looking at that the state's coming down with the COVID-19, even with all of that going on. I truly believe, and I have confidence in our school, that this is a great thing, and it's going to be great for our school, and I'm really looking forward to it.
Go ahead, Mike. Thank you, Brian.
My turn.
Go ahead, Mike. Go ahead.
Okay, first I have a question for Ben. Ben, on the 30th of June, we're supposed to get the roadmap from the governor. Can you tell me what not the detail, but what items do you expect to get at that time?
At that time, what we're expecting to get are some of the details around gathering sizes of children in classrooms, gathering sizes of children on the bus. What we're expecting is essentially a parameters-based approach. So it's not necessarily going to be that every school has to do X or Y, but I think that what instead it's going to say is you can open up school in whatever fashion you want, but you must comply with these basic standards. We're already prepared for what we believe many of those things will be. There's a lot of dialogue and debate around masks and whether they're harmful or helpful to children, and that includes the teachers as well. And so how do we engage in school safely with children? So her roadmap is really about that. I believe that she will also have a plan for any time that there's a need to go into a shutdown like they did at this time, that there's funding set aside for that. You can see that in the legislature's plan as well, is that really the money that they're proposing is about, being able to support online and blended or other types of distance learning. And oftentimes the money is tied to those programs. So I believe that they're very, very stipulated on it has to be spent for things related to the pandemic. So in terms of what we're going to get from the governor, I think it's going to be very similar, and it's going to be specific to what guidelines have to be in place for your school to start safely.
And for the school funding, do we expect that on the 30th?
We have been given no indication that she is going to be giving any dialogue on the school funding. The state set a self-imposed deadline of June 30th. They let everybody know that we're going to be well beyond that. And some of the contacts in Lansing are saying it might not be August until they give us a final number, because Treasury has to work through what we know. What we definitely know is that there is a over $2 billion shortfall between last year's budget, this year's current budget, and next year's budget. And so we're certainly thankful and hopeful that there will be some relief. The relief that they're speaking of still does not cover the full $2 billion shortfall. And so obviously we're hoping for some additional help. That there has been no indication of that other than what we just heard yesterday, as I shared earlier. So I'm not expecting any type of financial package. to be proposed by her. Her work that she's proposed on the 30th is really about how to open schools safely. And of course, that could change from now until next week.
Okay, if we do get the class size, take the two items. The class sizes in the buses. How many children we can have on the buses. If we get those two, we will have an idea about what we're going to have to spend for busing and what we're going to have to spend for teachers. Is that correct? I mean, we would know if we could only have 12 people on the bus, like we've heard, we're going to have a problem. If there's a small number of face-to-face students that can be in the classroom, we're going to either have to go to 2 shifts or we're going to have to do something, which would be more costly, correct?
I think what you're saying is true in that oftentimes there would be some more costly measures that are associated with those things. You know, we're not necessarily sure how those guidelines are going to come. We're planning on being able to offer different models where we reduce exposure to kids. But if we're required to hit a certain number, for example, as you stated, 12 on a bus, it's going to be very difficult for us to provide transportation without doing quite a bit of runs. And that has nothing to do with our elementary structure. Whichever model we're in is going to be affected by whatever those guidelines would be.
Or what?
Okay. I'd like to go on. I would like to thank everybody, the citizens, the administrators, the teachers, for their heavy input that we've gotten in the last couple of weeks. It has been very heavy. Appreciate it. I appreciate it being able to look at it from all sides, which I've tried to do. I realize there's pros and cons, and there's good and bad on both sides of the issue. In normal times, I would be supporting this. I have to talk now about COVID-19. I've listened to the citizens. I've read every one of them emails. I've had phone calls, and I'm sure everybody on the board has. And I've paid close attention to them. I have to side on the students and their mental health and their need to get back to normalcy. We need to assist them. I don't think we need to add to the problems and to their mental health by going to this model at this time. I honestly think, and I've discussed it with you, I wish that we could suspend this for now, lay it aside until we get the funding and we know how deep and hard them cuts are going to be. At that point, after we know where we're at, we know what we've got to cut, we know if we can even have things such as busing. At that time or sometime after that, in these meetings, I've talked about these meetings, I realize that these Zoom meetings may go on for who knows how long. I hope they end soon because they are a detriment, but I know we don't control that and I know we have to follow it. But I honestly wish that we could put this off and not jump into it until things settle down and at least the students get back to some kind of normalcy. Last thing I want to talk about, and it's going to be a very hot topic, very touchy, but I feel obligated to talk about it, I guess because I come from a law enforcement background. There's always been talk about retaliation in this district. things settled down when Ben came. During this, I've had a lot of contacts. I've had a lot of people tell me about retaliation. I want you to know that I don't get on Facebook. I don't pay any attention to it. I don't. I just don't get on social media. I know a lot of things that are on there aren't correct. I don't know of anybody, well, I shouldn't say that. I do. But I don't know of anybody that would come forward and make a complaint. Being a policeman, I know you got to have a complainant. You got to have someone there to sign that warrant and is willing to go to court. I'm not accusing anybody of retaliation. I'm hoping that it doesn't happen. And all I'm asking of this board and suggesting is that from this point forward, we need to keep a close eye on that. We need to watch it. We need to give our taxpayers the insurance that that doesn't happen. And that's all I got to say in that, I guess. And I'm finished.
Thank you, Mike. Jessica, Chuck.
I was going to say, go ahead, Chuck.
I appreciate all the comments from the public, but I think there needs to be more comments from the public. It seemed like most of the comments we had today was from the staff, if I'm not mistaken. Is that true, Ben? I was trying to keep track of everyone, but it seemed like it was at least a 50-50 or 60-40 split. So we don't have much public input as what I would like.
Yeah, I think you're close on terms of percentage. I don't have an exact percentage, but.
Well, yeah, I was just kind of going through it as writing down names that we want. So I appreciate their comments because they're the professionals that work there. But as public officials and as, you know, public employees, they actually work for the public. So that's one big consideration I thought about. And what bothered me was they kept talking about collaboration with the 5th and 4th grader teachers. Aren't we having it now with professional development?
Yeah, I think one of the things that we do obviously is much collaboration as we can. So currently running 5 independent buildings, if you're a 4th grade teacher, say at Elm Road, you have 2 or 3 additional teachers that you can collaborate with in your grade level. The one thing that is a benefit of keeping a K-5 model is that the teachers collaborate vertically. But what probably is lacking is a little bit of the target support and the collaboration that can happen between 4th grade teachers. If you have 5 or 6 of them working together, you can spread that workload around. And so it's very difficult for a teacher at Moorish and Elms to collaborate unless you're pulling them out of their work schedule, which pulls them away for kids. So being able to be in the same building with your same grade level peers, you can start to do some targeted groups and things that are just not possible working in, when you have a couple people, 1, 2, or possibly 3 teachers.
Okay. Yeah, that's what that's what I was getting. It just seemed like there wasn't a lot of horizontal collaboration because they were in different buildings, but I thought that they did that on their professional development days and they helped each other and they exchanged ideas, but vertically it goes up, correct? And the budget, I'd like to point the board to the budget. This is the main thing with me. According to Chris's numbers, we're at 10.5, but she estimates a 6.85%, with projected numbers coming in. Is that correct? Are we all in agreement on that? Or is that true?
That's correct.
Okay. So if we're going to say just conservatively to what some people have said, $450,000, I'll even say 500. that's only about 0.5% to 0.75%. So we got to come up with another 3 to 4%. So I don't want to cut anything till we find out what the budget looks like and have more numbers on it. And a lot of it has to do with because there could be other cuts, which could be severe to the children. And that's what we're here for. That's what everybody's saying. So we have to look at that because I'm just using you guys' numbers and we're still looking at head cut. So why are we even looking at this? And you gave us 12 to 14 budget cuts that we could do, which I'm not going to name them off here. We talked about them in previous meetings. And it seems like we're zeroing in on this one. And I know it has to be done quickly, according to you. And I respect your professionalism in it. But I think that there's other things we can look at that don't affect it as bad. And I know that you're saying that, oh, if we do this, we may save some cuts. But according to your own numbers, we're not going to be able to save any cuts. So I don't know why everybody's scoping in on that. That's going to be a big budget thing. And two is that I'm not opposed to this altogether. I was one of the ones opposed to it last year. I'm still opposed to it, not as strongly as Brian said. Brian said he's had some mixed feelings about it and changed his mind on some things, and so have I, actually, which is tough for people to convince me that. But I have changed on it. But if we do implement it, I don't think it should be done in 2 months. I think it needs to be eased in. I think our children need to go back to school the way that it was, and then have more public input. Not that I don't respect our staff. I respect them immensely and 100%, but I think we need more public input from the public, and doing it in Zoom. I don't think it's really gotten out to the public. Like Mike, I'm not on social media. I hear about it, but I'm not on it. And I think that we would be better serve our students that if we let them come back to school, the state says, hey, we're going to cut the budget severely. We look at the 12 to 14 budget cuts that you had proposed or potentially proposed, and then say, this is something that we're going to have to do, and tell the public this, everybody get prepared for it, and then ease into it. I just think that a 6-month transition period, you're telling all the kids, hey, listen, come the first of the year, we're going to have to do this, in that semester, or, at the beginning of next year, because we still have the construction going on. And I'm concerned about the construction because you've configured the schools on a K through 5, and now we're going to have to reconfigure them for this, which is still going to be a hassle too with all the construction going on. And I would think that everybody would agree on that. So I think we're rushing into it a little too soon. I'm not opposed to it like I was, but I just think that now is not the right time. I just believe that we should go into it slowly, look and see what our budget is. If we decide as a group with all the different 14 budget cuts you gave us, because I have them here, I don't want to name them, but different things that we could cut from if needed, then take an overall look at it and then say, hey, this is something we might mandatorily have to do. Explain this to the public more thoroughly and say, we're not going to do it the first year while we're on Zoom meetings, going to do it in public meetings, and we're going to do it. We're all on board together, and we're going to ease our children into it. I just think that would be a better bet for everyone, including the kids. And I think that the staff would like it so they can prepare for it. I know they said they could do it, but it's a lot to ask in a short time. Not saying you're not capable of it. I'm thinking of the students who just rushing them into this. So why can't we just put them back into school? Hopefully everything's kind of some semblance of normality, and then we get the money where we're going to be at with that, and then start looking at it hard as a board. What can we cut? What can't we cut? And get the public involved in it, because this is a huge change for the public. And I didn't hear a lot from the public for the K through 5 model. And then if we decide to do it smoothly, go into it. I just think that would be better for us and for the children. Thank you.
Thanks, Chuck. I guess that leaves me, right, Carrie? Well, oh my gosh, I'm not certain where to start in that. I think the idea that maybe this isn't the right time is a matter of perception, in that I don't know when we're going to go back to the old normal, or even if we should. And some of the arguments that have been made about the kids are looking to go back to something that they've been away from it so long. This might be, it's the closest thing to an extent of, in a way, of a cleaner slate. They're so far removed from being in school to come back in a couple months to something that's different may not be, I guess my thought is, as difficult as it is to start something as a new normal for, let's say, a year or even 2 years, and then we're going to tell them, okay, now we're changing it again. That to me would be more challenging for these kids. And I actually first want to back up and say thank you really to all the parents and all the staff and students that I talked to, and in particular, I'm going to jump around for a second because the students that I talked to, my girls the other day were in the car, and I said something about this is probably going to be a long board meeting, and they said, why? And I mentioned it. And they just finished 8th grade and 11th grade, and they both went to Moorish and piped up and said, oh, I think that's a really good idea. They hadn't heard me talking about it or anything else in front of them. And I said, really, why is that? And they immediately said, because they paused and said, it makes sense. It makes sense to be around more kids your age. And my younger daughter said, it can be, she said, I remember as a kindergartner, it was really intimidating to be around 4th and 5th graders. And sometimes they're not very nice to the younger kids. And she had an issue with that a little bit. And I said, really? I said, do you think, I said, if you guys had been that age, would you have minded? Would you have minded getting on a bus and going to a different school than your sister? And my daughter said, no, as long as I had an adult at the bus stop with me and I felt safe going to school, I would have been fine. And I said, really? And she said, yeah, and it makes a lot of sense. Like, if they're splitting up the schools, you know, you don't have to get 4 necessarily. And as an idea, she said this, she said, well, if you get like the new 3D printers, you'd only need to get 2 for like the 3rd and 5th grade schools rather than, you know, the K2 schools. I was like, well, I'm glad you thought of that. There are just certain things in our staff. I value so much our staff. I hear so many times about how much people love our schools that are in our community. And the best way for me to equate it is to think about what makes a house a home. And it's the people and how you live in it. And I can say this, that I would trust my kids going to any school in Swartz Creek at any age. Our staff in every school has been fantastic. And to think that this shift would not continue to create that, and even our professionals who are well-trained, who spoke tonight, and who have sent emails, who have all said that this model is it's like an even stronger safety net for our kids during such a difficult time. Not just now with COVID, but also going forward. Like, we have an opportunity to, in my mind, from what I've heard from our staff, to be able to be even more supportive to our kids than we have been previously. And then from our parents, we hear, we need you to be more supportive to our kids because this is a difficult time. Our staff is saying that this is a good solution. And I'm not saying our administrative staff, because they have said that. I'm saying our boots on the ground, they're every day with these kids, are saying this is what is a good idea. And I get not everybody in the building thinks that. But more so than not, the results that we got, what was it, 349? I read through over half those comments easily this afternoon. There were quite a few I was going through, and it was wonderful to hear how people said, well, I'm a little uncertain, but I do support this. It may be inconvenient to me, but I see it's a good idea for my kids. You know, I get that it would be inconvenient to me as a parent at that time. And change is scary for humans, right? It's our fear of uncertainty. And we get fired up because, and that's a lot of what we hear. And one of our emailers sent an email on fact finding. I don't know if you guys looked at that link as far as the 4 different schools like Marshall looked at. And then one of them, Jackson Northwest, they did theirs. They ended theirs at the end of the year and started at the beginning of the following school year before financial reasons. And when Marshall asked them whether or not, in hindsight, if you didn't, you know, if it wasn't a financial issue, would you do it again? And Jackson's response was absolutely. And it even brought the community together. There are some really good ideas in there, you know, rather than having separate PTOs, doing a community PTO for all of our schools. We've talked about this, and I think that's important. we have 5 different schools sometimes that have a rivalry, and we have an opportunity to be even more cohesive with this. You know, it's an opportunity to look and change our perspective. And I really appreciate what Ben said earlier about it not being something good or bad. It's good and good. They're just different. And we have an opportunity to maybe do something different that our professionals are telling us that will allow us to do something even better than what we have been doing. And I think that's all I have to say for right now, other than I think that's it. Thanks for everybody's input.
Thank you, Jessica. Alicia, I don't want to shortchange you. I don't know if you were just asking a question or if you had an adequate opportunity to comment.
Thank you. I was actually going to ask. So I did just question. I didn't have a chance to actually speak. First and foremost, I want to say I don't think we can have this conversation appropriately without acknowledging that we are having it because there's a financial concern. The questions have been posed. Why are we rushing into such a financial decision so quickly, or such a drastic change so quickly? And what if we end up getting money? Why don't we just wait until we know what the funding is? I see this model, I'm not negating that there are concerns. I want to second Jessica's comments that I think these children don't even know what normal is anymore. And I want to appreciate that we probably won't go back to a normal as we knew it before either. So when we have the ability to put them back in school, which is ultimately what they want, and we can commit to providing them all the same educational services and programs that we had before, and if anything, we can enhance them, that's first and foremost what I want to stand behind. If we didn't have to make a decision financially, I think, yes, we need to take more time. We need to get more information. We need to listen to the community. Unfortunately, we're in a position that we do have to make a financial decision. All of Chris's information before showed us we're going to have a shortfall. And then in addition to that, we may have additional shortfalls that come in the future. I would hate to already start school and then have to start yanking things out. It's a lot easier if we can plan and do it systematically now, and plan for a well-delivered program to start the fall school year. In the event that we get bailed out and there's more money, my answer to that is fantastic. That's a great position to be in, because then we have money we can then put into other programs and services for the kids. This doesn't take anything away from our children. So I have a really hard time saying no to it. If it works in their best interest and it saves our district money and it puts us into a position where we wouldn't have to make other changes or other cuts, I need something else to change my mind. That's all I have, unless somebody has a question. Carrie, you're muted.
Alicia?
Thank you. There have been a lot of comments for and against this model. And Alicia, your comments are right on, that we are in a position of having to do some very difficult things. I think Alicia will appreciate this as well as anybody who has anyone close to them who works in healthcare. I live by the philosophy of do no harm. And I think as a board, we are here because we care about students. And I look at opportunities here that are furthest away from our children. And in my opinion, I believe that this model can provide our children with an opportunity in the K-2 model to have much more focused reading and literacy interventions that will serve our children well into their future careers in school. And I also have listened closely to the folks who've commented, both educators, administrators, parents, and we always hear about class size. And if we can even that out, if we can allow teachers to teach together, learn together, and also share their expertise at the different levels so that they're more successful as they're going into middle school. There's the socialization aspect. And as Alicia mentioned, the bottom line is we need to improve efficiency, not only just in the buildings, but across the district. And so I know this is moving quickly, but I appreciate, Ben, your willingness to shepherd this if in fact it is adopted. So with that, any other conversation before we move on?
Yeah.
Mike,
Yeah.
go ahead. Go ahead.
Alicia, do you honestly think that there's not going to be any mental health problem with the kids when they go back to school?
Oh, absolutely
They
not.
go in this model?
And no, I mean, absolutely not. I think every person in their own way has suffered trauma through this locally, nationally, and globally. And definitely our children with a change are going to have something to overcome and adapt. I do, however, feel that putting them back into the place that is their safety, which is school, is something that we have to try to get behind. And that's what we're trying to do. We're sending them back to school. We're sending them with their peers. And if anything, we're increasing the volume of peers that they're going to be with, all at their same age group and level. I agree, and I'll second what Jessica commented, how her children responded, that a kindergartner with a fifth grader can be very difficult. My children can attest to that as well. So putting kindergartners with like peers up to second grade, I think also allows us as a district, as teachers and as administrators, to do better planning around those students. I think we can have better programming in place to address those needs and their concerns. We will have different training and programming that's going to need to be done to keep them safe moving forward, because this is our reality and we're going to have to start planning for the future, not just to get past what we've been through, but to plan effectively moving forward in the event that anything else hits us nationally like this as well. As well, being more efficient, we actually have the ability to provide better services to those students. So instead of taking a counselor and spreading them across multiple buildings, or even just 2 buildings, we have the ability to provide them at their educational level, at their location, and give them more services right where they're at. So no, I absolutely don't think that there won't be some trauma that has to, that they are going to have to embrace moving back into school. But ultimately, I think what they're going to be happiest about is to just go back to school. I've said it before. I mean, from a kindergartner perspective, or I won't say kindergartner because that's a brand new student. So say a second grader. They're going to go back to school at that developmental age. What they know is that they want to be with their friends and they want to be in a classroom that looks and feels similar to what I had before. Regardless, every single school year in the fall, it's a change. They have a new teacher. They have new students in their classroom. They have new expectations. They have new grade level expectations to start to deal with. They have a new structure to their day. Everything truly is new. I mean, the first day of school is a new experience for a child every single year. They will still have a new teacher. They will still have new students in their classroom, but they will have like students as well. Some of their peers and friends will be coming with them. And ultimately that classroom, albeit they may pull into a different parking lot when they arrive at school, our buildings are getting constructed to be exactly similar. They're going to have the same environment. And unless they're looking at the name on the building, what we're providing inside is what's consistent. And that's what I have to stand behind.
Okay. Ben, this question is for you.
can you give me an estimate and an explanation, a rough one, of what will have to be done if this is passed? What will have to be done in the next 2 months? How much work will have to be done? And approximately, what's the cost going to be?
Yeah, certainly. In terms of the cost, we're going to be planning to come back to school, whether we're in a K-5 or a K-2, 3-5 model. So, the cost in terms of moving is kind of relegated to our local. I could tell you that there will be some hourly cost for some of our people to be moving some of the classroom furniture, right? So, for example, if you're a teacher at Deke and you're going to be teaching at Cyrene, if you're a first grade teacher, we would have to move some of your classroom supplies from Deke to Cyrene. And so that will take a little bit of coordination. And we have had some conversations just internally, regardless of whether we move to this or not, we're already moving that furniture. The furniture has been moved out of classrooms because the buildings are under construction. So whether we move the furniture back into those classrooms or we move some of those things back to a different building, we're simply moving the box truck a few miles down the road. So that's probably one of the biggest logistical challenges is that. In terms of the dealing with the busing and transportation, we understand that the plan that we have that I've mentioned, either the first plan or the second plan, will be able to safely deliver our students. But now it's a matter of reaching out and actually working with families to identify, okay, which of the students that we have are going to be riding buses, actually mapping out the routes. Again, this is something that's done every year. But it's going to look a little different if we're, doing a shuttle over to another building. One of the other pieces is providing some professional development and training. That is already in the plan and in the works for the summer as well. So in terms of a cost, I don't want to say there's no cost because there are some costs associated with, moving some of those things. Instead of moving it back to the classroom, I have to move it across, a few miles down the road. But these are all pieces that we will be doing regardless of which model you decide us to be in after tonight. I will also say that there's some other logistics that need to be considered, and those are basically just ensuring, and again, I already talked about this with the furniture, for our little ones, our children who are in K2, making sure that they have furniture that is right sized for them and so on and so forth, so that the buildings are appropriately, outfitted, I should say. So in terms of the logistics, that sums up the change. We're going to have a lot of logistics that we're already doing now, and we're planning for either way.
So you shouldn't be coming to the board asking for any money, any additional monies. It's going to be the same because we're in the construction and there isn't going to be an added cost for this move. True?
I will just preface it by saying that there will be some additional, time, as we've said, that there's going to have to be people, potentially taking furniture down to a different building. So those things are there, but in terms of a substantial cost that would be outside of our approved budget that we would need to come back to the board for, no, there is not a number that would exceed our budget.
Thank you.
Well, it sounds like we're already starting to plan this. I mean, so I'm obviously in the dark. And this is why I'm sitting at work, but this is why I like kids going together. There's my two boys. I've lived in Swartz Creek for 41 years. They worked out just fine. They're both good, great young men. Obviously, we should just go ahead and put it to a vote.
I'm not ready for that because I actually have a question, Carrie.
Yeah, go ahead.
So I do want to question if we can even have this conversation without a decision on our budget. Because this plays a big factor into that, whether we appreciate any savings at all. And if we don't appreciate any savings because we don't enact this proposal, then where are we going to get the savings from?
So Alicia, I think if this answers your question, we will be voting on the amended budget and the 2021 budget prior to this item. Does that help?
It does that we're going to vote, but we haven't had discussion on that budget yet. So as presented, it's a 6.8% fund balance with the given budget. And we've had previous conversations that board members are not comfortable moving into the next school year at that level.
I am concerned, but I'm aware that this budget, it was said at one of the meetings, or said somewhere, is probably not worth the money is printed on, or paper it's printed on. Because we don't have the figures, and we don't know, what it's gonna cost.
We never have, though, when we've ever decided a budget in the past, so I don't understand why this is different.
Why isn't this different? Because we had a pretty good idea what our revenue was gonna be. We had a pretty good idea what the the state funds were gonna be, and we don't have that now. We won't know. We won't know until the state comes across.
But we've built this around, I think, worst case scenarios, correct, Ben?
We're projecting a $300 shortfall in this year's budget. We also then carry that into next year. We are actually preparing for and hoping for some stimulus. So, the savings on this particular reconfiguration is not considered necessarily in this budget. So there would be some additional savings. These are things that obviously the board's going to have to be wrestling with. There are certainly going to have to be some discussions with our collective bargaining agreements with our staff. Our administrators, our teachers, our support staff, they've all come to the table and said, we're willing to help and be a part of the solution. I have no doubt that that's going to happen over the course of the next month or two. Hopefully we're going to get some more guidance on some of those budgets that the board will be able to look at so that amendment can be created by the time we get into the fall. I think Mike is correct when he says that, typically in a typical year, you would have a little bit more certainty on what we're looking at. So as we look forward to the fall, this is a bit unprecedented in that. However, the things that we know that are consistent, we are $2.4 billion short over this past year and upcoming year in the school aid fund. So those shortages are going to come from somewhere, and we're hoping as well for some assistance from the federal government and hope that there will be some additional things there. So when you couple in some of these savings, the savings from hopefully some concessions and some discussions with our groups, and then as we look forward into the fall, we'll be able to hopefully put together something that allows us to not cut into student programs. And I think that, is always our first priority.
Okay. Are we ready to move forward then? Not hearing a no. Okay. On board action items, we have the annual renewal of the non-union administrative contracts.
This particular agenda item is something that's done annually. Our administrators have a rollover clause in their contracts that's renewed on an annual basis. They all understand that, they'll be opening up those contracts to discuss concessions at the time that we need to do so. This has nothing to do with my contract, and that is not a part of this package.
When will be the right time for the concession talk?
I can tell you that we are having those conversations currently with all of our groups, and those conversations are commencing now. So I would expect over the next month, we'll be asking the board to consider some of those resolutions.
What's the cost of the contract?
I'm sorry, did you say next month?
Over the course of the next month, yes.
Thank you.
What's the cost of the rollover contract?
There are no increases at all, so it's the same cost that we had in our prior year.
So wages are staying the same for all of them?
Wages stay the same for all of them. It's simply just extending it another year.
Thank you.
Mm-hmm.
And that's 7 administrators.
Correct.
So with that, I would entertain a motion to approve.
So moved.
Support.
Alicia and Brian? Any comments or questions? Be it resolved.
I have one question. If we know that we're going to be in a budget shortfall, why hasn't this already been done and brought to us so we could discuss that along with the new school model? We're quick to jump on this, but not other things. I'm asking a question. I'd like that answered.
Sure. Yeah, the conversations are commencing. They do require commitment and dialogue from both parties. And so there is certainly a willingness to do that, and we're going to continue that dialogue. So as I said, over the next month, you'll be seeing those.
Well, we didn't have any problem with their dialogue now, them piping in about what's going on with the school program. How come they didn't jump on that part of it? You know why?
No, I'm not sure. I'm not sure how to answer your question.
Well, we're quick to jump on the school program, but we know all these other things are coming up. So why aren't we approaching some of these other things? We're zeroing in on one thing.
As I said before, we're looking at this because the fact of the matter is there's some planning involved with this, and we want to be able to do it well. If the board decides not to do it, that's fine. We'll continue to go back to the mat and bring back additional solutions. I'm committed to doing that, and I know that our staff is committed to doing that. I do feel comfortable saying that there will be staff concessions. The amount of money that is short in the school aid fund is likely beyond the amount of concessions that will be able to be achieved in most scenarios. So we're going to have to look at a multifaceted approach where we're looking at solutions like this, we're looking at concessions, and we're looking at a variety of other topics. And I think, as I've said before, our goal is to try and make sure we don't do harm to students.
Absolutely, I agree 110%, Ben. So we're going to cut $400,000 to $500,000 possibly in City Elementary School, but our school budget staff is 81% of our budget. Is that correct?
That's correct. Yes.
All right. Thank you. I'm good.
And this is a renewal of the contracts that are currently in place that are due by July 1st.
That's correct.
Okay. All right. Any other comments? Be it resolved that the Swartz Creek Community Schools Board of Education approve the renewal of non-union administrative contracts as presented. Joanne, would you do roll call, please? You're muted, Joanne.
Sorry. I'm sorry. Brian?
Yes.
Mike?
Yes.
Chuck?
No.
Tony? Tony, you're muted.
Yes.
Carrie,
Yes.
Jessica,
Yes.
and Alicia.
Yes.
That's 6 yeses and 1 no.
Okay, motion passes. Next, we have the approval of the 2019-20 Swartz Creek Community Schools Budget Amendment 3. I would entertain a motion.
So moved.
Support.
Brian, and I didn't get support. Was that Tony?
Support.
Okay. Any comments or questions?
I guess I have the same question, is that this budget doesn't, our next decision impacts our overall budget and what we spend where, or what our overall, end budget would be. How do we enact a budget without another significant financial decision?
Your first budget, as Mike was explaining, is we are not going to hit the mark exactly the way that you would. And every school district across the state is proposing a budget right now that they're going to have to amend in the fall. So we're going to have to do the same. When we get into the fall, we'll have to do an amendment, which is standard from year to year, because again, we're going to learn a lot more over the next.
Anybody else? Okay. Be it resolved that the Swartz Creek Community Schools Board of Education approve the approval of 2019-20 Swartz Creek Community Schools Budget Amendment 3 as presented. Joanne, could you do roll call, please?
Jessica,
Yes.
Mike,
Yes.
Chuck,
No.
Carrie,
Yes.
Brian,
Yes.
Tony,
Yes.
and Alicia.
Yes.
That's 6 yeses, 1 no.
Okay, motion passes. Next, we have the approval of the 2020-21 Swartz Creek Community Schools budget. I need a motion.
So moved.
Tony?
Support.
Brian? Any comments or questions? Hearing none. Joanne, could you do roll call, please?
Yep. Alicia? Alicia? You're muted.
Sorry. Yep, I was trying to find my, yes.
Brian?
Yes.
Tony?
Yes.
Mike?
Yes.
Jessica?
Yes.
Chuck?
No.
Carrie?
Yes.
6 yeses, 1 no.
Okay, motion passes. Let's see. Approval of elementary school reconfiguration. I need a
Madam
motion.
President, I'd like to entertain a motion that we postpone this vote on the elementary school configurations and till we receive the state cuts, till they're received, and we are aware of the amount of the cuts needed.
Joanne, did you get that?
He's making a motion to postpone till we receive state cuts.
And are aware of the amount of cuts needed.
Okay. So it's a motion to postpone this elementary configuration till we receive state cuts and are aware of what cuts are needed.
Yes.
Okay, and is there any support?
Support.
Is that Chuck?
Yes.
Okay, any comments or questions?
Yes, I would like to speak on behalf of parents. I can only assume teachers that postponing and then potentially having to make this decision mid-fall poses a whole lot of logistical concerns. When we're able to make a decision like this at this time, although it will require some logistics, some change and some planning, doing this now versus mid-school year can pose a whole lot more issues for others. So our vote will come, but I wanted to make that statement.
Okay. Any others? Okay, Joanne, could you do roll call, please?
Sure. Brian,
No.
Mike,
Yes.
Jessica,
No.
Carrie,
No.
Chuck,
Yes.
Tony,
No.
Alicia,
No.
that's 5 no's, 2 yeses.
Okay, motion fails. Going back to our original.
Point of order, I think it was 3. Oh, I apologize. I'm sorry, Madam President.
No, that's okay. Going back to D, the original approval of elementary school reconfiguration, I would entertain a motion for approval.
So moved.
Support.
Ryan and Alicia, any comments or questions? Hearing none. Joanne, could you do a roll call, please?
Sure. Chuck,
No.
Alicia,
Yes.
Jessica,
Yes.
Tony,
Yes.
I'm sorry.
Yes.
Thank you. Carrie,
Yes.
Brian,
Yes.
and Mike.
No.
That is 5 yeses and 2 no's.
Okay, and motion passes. Thank you, everybody. All right, moving forward, it's we have an opportunity for board comments. And I apologize, I can't, based on my iPad, I am not able to see, I think, Chuck. So if you have comments, Chuck, just speak up, as well as anyone else. Anyone?
Can I speak, Carrie?
Alicia, sure, go ahead.
I wanted to second Mike's concern. If there are staff that are making comments, that they would be reprimanded or retaliated against for making statements. I personally want to say that this district would not stand for that. I would actually like input and feedback from other administrators and definitely from Ben, but I don't know where that comes from. I personally have not heard of it. I definitely would want to investigate further if that's happening, but essentially that's illegal. I mean, for lack of a better word, you know, in a whistleblower type protection. So I want to say I am open and welcome all feedback, whether that's from community, staff, students. So I guess I would, if you feel appropriate, Ben, to comment to that at all?
Yeah, I'm happy to say that. I can speak to the fact that several of the staff members that have voiced concerns with this model are people that I have personally hired and encouraged them to do so. There has absolutely not been one individual on my watch who has been reprimanded for speaking out, you know, against it. I cannot speak to how a certain individual feels or how they may perceive themselves to be that. Since I've started, have rooted out a lot of that what I consider to be bullying and nonsense. I totally agree with that sentiment. I can't speak for anyone's individual choice, but the people that have spoken out, that continue to speak out, we become a better district from hearing that dialogue. And we hold no ill feelings. Everyone has a right to voice their opinion in a civilized society and in a district that's trying to get better. If you talk to teachers and staff members and you talk to administrators, one of the first things I've said is that you need to disagree with us because that helps us get better. So it cuts both ways. There's people that are afraid to speak because of possibility of being retaliated against. There's no objective evidence from this office that that's occurring. And I think that there's people that will be afraid to speak out because of being retaliated against from colleagues that disagree. I've said from the beginning that this is not, and I've shared the survey results, that it's not universally supported. And I believe that that's the case from staff members as well. So, there will be any retaliation. In fact, it will be encouraged, and we continue to do so. I cannot speak for my predecessors or culture or history, but it hasn't happened here.
Thank you for that. Carrie, I do have some more comments if you don't mind.
Sure, go ahead.
I want to congratulate, I know we did a little bit earlier, but formally congratulate both Brendan Johnson and Isaac Ferris as our new student representatives. So thank you. You came into a busy and impactful meeting, but we look forward to your participation in the future. Congratulations, Jacob. You will be greatly missed. Good luck in all of your future endeavors. We are very proud to have you represent Swartz Creek and this board as you move forward. So go Harvard, or however you say that. Very proud of you. And then lastly, I do want to acknowledge everybody that spoke previously. Thank them for all of their comments and their passion, regardless of the position that they have. But I do also want to, and just generally encourage the community that this is an opportunity that we can prove that we are dragons and we can all come together, all for a common goal, and ultimately have a successful start to the fall school year with successful students.
Thank you, Alicia.
Alicia, I have a question. Okay, I need some verification. Did you say earlier that you were not aware of any of these complaints about retaliation?
No, I was not.
Pardon?
No, nothing specific, no.
Okay, did you read all the, I assume you've read all the emails, Gmails in the last 2 weeks?
I have. There have been some general statements of some assumptions, but I haven't had anything specific.
Okay, thank you.
That would apply to me too as well, Mike. I read all of the emails. In fact, I was responding to the last one at 5:50 because I got several today, but I had general comments, but nothing specific. Anybody else?
I will. Oh, go ahead, Brian.
I would just like to thank everybody. We came through some tough decisions tonight. And it hasn't just been the past couple of days. It's been a week, 2 weeks. It's been a long time in these decisions, the budget decisions, this configuration decision. And I think we made the right choices. And I'm looking forward to some great success in all of this. As far as, I read all the emails too. And there was some, but I don't think we actually had a complainant. We just had some hearsay information about attacks and, I don't put a lot of stock into that. And I'm hoping that through our superintendent, Ben, and I believe, and I know he's great at this, integrity and ethics, big deal. And I hope that if he hears of anything like that, the investigation will start. But I don't know. It's easy to have hearsay. It really is. So I'm believing that. No, I can't see anybody on our staff, but again, I don't want to be closed-minded, threatening somebody else. I think I want to thank Jacob, I want to welcome the two new student reps. I think it's going to be great. And I also want to thank a man that I highly respect that is retired tonight, Mr. Bruce Fuller. Congratulations and enjoy your retirement. Thank you.
Probably the most well-read man
Yeah.
I know. Anyone else? Jessica, I think you had a comment.
Yeah, number one, would like to echo what Alicia said and congratulate Brendan Johnson and Isaac Ferris. Super excited to have you both join us here at our meetings. And Jacob, all the best to you. And Mr. Fuller, thank you for everything you've done to serve in this community. And I hope you really enjoy your retirement. You know, I want to say, I thought a lot about the decisions. We made some hard ones tonight with the conversation and thinking about this. Am I making a decision out of fear or faith? And I have a lot of faith in our teachers, in our community to be supportive, not only to the kids, but to each other and to I have a lot of faith in our administration and our support staff. You all do a wonderful job in this board as well, even though we may not agree. And I know I've said this before when I think it was Mike and I had a little issue maybe, but it wasn't personal. What I said was, whenever it was, that we may not always agree, but I firmly believe that we all come together. And I'm not just talking about the board. I'm talking about all the emails we got, the administration, the teachers, that when everybody shows up, we are showing up with the intention of doing what's best for the kids, the staff, and the community. And it's really, I'm thankful to be able to be a part of that as a parent, as a community member, and as a board member. And I just know that, I hope that we'll continue to grow all together. That's all.
Thanks, Jessica. And I want to make a comment too. I'm proud of this board as well in how we respectfully debated and talked about everything that was so difficult tonight. And I think we set an example for the community. So thank you for that. Anybody else? All right, Jacob.
Actually, if you don't mind, I would like to just Mr. Meinke, is the student board rep policy in the board doc system at this point?
Yes, it is. Yep.
Okay.
The Neola staff has been a little bit behind with their with COVID-19, but it is in process.
Okay. Do you happen to know what policy number that'll end up being?
At the moment, I do not, but I can certainly get you that answer.
Okay, sure. I do want to emphasize, it's kind of interesting. This is actually a very unique meeting for the new people to be at, because one of the points that the administration emphasized when we first started to get into this student rep position was that it would expose the student body to the governmental process, which, as we have seen, can be cacophonous at times. But I think that's a great thing for the student body as a whole to see that. And finally, of course, I just want to wish Brendan and Isaac good luck, and also this board good luck. And thank you for allowing me to serve.
Thank you, Jacob. And I also want to thank Chris Gray for her work on the budget and for presenting this evening. And another shout out to Mr. Fuller. And I wish him well in his retirement. And if there is nothing else, I would entertain a motion. Oh, also Isaac and Brendan, welcome. It's not always like this, by the way. I would entertain a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
Alicia?
Support.
Tony? Any comments or questions? Joanne, if you would forgive me, I will just ask for the consensus.
Alrighty.
All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Bye.
Any opposed? Thank you, everybody. Look forward to working with you. Thanks, Ben. Thanks, Rod. Take care, everybody.
Thank you.